Now,
you are not.
Yo, hello everybody.
Good evening.
Ooh, Kevin's here.
I'm here. I'm here. I thought this was just like a Teams background, but I can tell you it's actually a real kitchen. So, woo, made it.
Yeah, look. Touch wood. Anyway, hello everybody. Ford. Oh, hang on. We got ads.
We've got adverts playing on the screen. That's it. We'll just mute the sound.
Yeah. Right. It is Ford Orion night today, as you all know. Now, it's not the car I would normally talk about, because the Orion, as we all know, is a pretty much underrated car.
Absolutely.
But Mr. Kevin here, he has lived the Ford Orion dream. He knows a few things about it, and he has some experience with Orions, and that's why it's a little bit meaningful to him. So he wants to talk about it. So, Kevin, over to you. Tell us why you want to talk about the Ford Orion.
Well, first and foremost, the Orion was launched in September 1983. So it celebrates its 40th birthday or anniversary, whatever you'd like to call it, this year. And as Alan said, I believe it's a very underrated and overlooked classic Ford. As you may well know, Alan and myself have been to a lot of car shows over the past year. How many Orions did we see, Alan?
I remember seeing one.
One. I think we saw one, which belonged to Will Hewitt at the TC Harrison show. So, hi, Will. Looking into this before this evening, I went on howmanyleft.com, and there's hardly any Orions left out there. There's not many at all. A lot of them as well have been modified. So they've kind of been lowered. They've had a Z-Tech engine dropped into them, big wheels. So an original spec Orion is very, very difficult to find. So I'd love to hear your comments this evening. Did you own an Orion back in the day? More to the point, have you still got one now? It would be great to know. So send us your comments, please.
Before we get the old whiskey out, let's just see who we got. I recognise a lot of these names. We've got Finn. Hello, Finn. He lives in Ireland.
Really? Evening, Finn. How you doing?
What's he got to say? I had the pleasure of getting a drive in a brand new
Ford Orion back in 1991. So 1991, that would have been the Mark III if it was brand new, wouldn't it? Which was the third generation.
They look like an Escort Mark IV at the front.
Yeah, they were pretty much an Escort. They were built on the Escort floor plan, but it was the Escort estate because they needed the extra length to tack the boot onto the back of them. So yeah, as Alan was saying, I kind of have first-hand experience of Orions because my dad bought one, pretty similar time, 1990. He bought an Orion as the family car, and it was a year old. That was the newest car my dad ever owned. So it was a 1989 F-plate 1.4L Orion. And I was saying to Alan just before we started the live stream, my dad went from a Mark V Cortina 2-litre gear to this 1.4 Orion L, which was the basic spec. But I'm not joking, it felt like the Orion had more equipment on it. I mean, it had a tilt and slide glass sunroof, which was more than the Cortina gear had. So it just felt like a real step up. It shows you how quick kind of standard features move on with these cars, doesn't it?
Yeah, I did read up that the Orion was like almost a replacement for the Ford Cortina Mark V.
Yeah.
For like a 4-door saloon.
Yeah, the Sierra at the time, they'd only launched it as the hatchback. So the 4-door Sierra was quite a few years off. They didn't come up with the Sapphire till 1987. So kind of stopgap was the Orion. And it was an Escort. Let's be honest, it was an Escort running gear, Escort body right up to the kind of B pillar, wasn't it? Oh, Jack Daniels. Where did you get that from?
At the cupboard.
Yeah, but who bought you it? Was that from Chris Bell?
No, Chris. In actual fact, Chris is here tonight.
Yeah, I can see there he is coming up.
If you want to scroll through to the comments.
Anyway, thanks, Finn. Thanks for that. Let's move on to the next comment.
Just if you use a trackpad, I guess you must have.
He's trusting me with IT technology now. That's all
you've got to do
right.
is just tap on there like that. Now bring up the next comment.
And we got Chris Jones, and it says, "Hi, Alan." So I'll let you read that one, Alan.
Hello, Chris. Do the CVH engines still sludge up even with ACEA
synthetic
oil? Do you remember the Girlin? ABS on the facelift.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one thing that the Orions had. They had ABS brakes, didn't they? Which was quite something at the time. And the fact that the gear models had more sound insulation. They were quite upmarket cars, really, but the problem is not that many people bought them. They didn't sell that well. They were underrated, and a lot of people didn't even know the specs of these cars.
Yeah.
When you compare Orion to like an Escort, some of these Orions were well specced up.
They were. Well, the Orion was initially 1983 on launch. It was kind of a bit of an upmarket product, so they only launched it in GL gear or gear injection spec. The L model didn't follow till April 1984. So it was kind of that higher end of the market, mid to high end they were going for. Yeah.
The CVH engines, I don't ever remember them sludging up, but I always remember they weren't the best of engines. They were all right, but if we had quite a few problems with them, like piston slap, tappets, all kinds of knocks from the engines. But there again, the engines that I was used to were in like taxis. So we were dealing with clapped out engines half the time anyway. I never really saw a decent CVH engine unless it was in someone else's car at a car show or something.
So I guess all your taxis, were they all diesels then, Alan? Yeah.
Well, the early taxis, when I was working at Steve's, well, I'm still there, but the early taxis, the diesels we had, they were 2.3 litre Peugeot engines, and they went in the Ford Sierras and the Mark III Granada. The 2.5 diesel Peugeot engine went in the Granada, and the 2.3 diesels went in the Sierras. Then they put the 1800 diesel engine in the later Sierras. They were the engines we had as well as diesels. The rest of them were petrols. We did have CVH petrols. I think they put some CVHs in Sierras as well.
Yeah.
They were the ones we had. So, but they were all clapped out. They were all old cars and ran around as taxis all the time.
Yeah, high mileage.
So we never really got to see any decent ones, the ones that have been looked after properly. So we were forever repairing them. So my memories of CVH engines weren't exactly great, if you know what I mean. Anyway,
well,
what drink would you like? Do you want a Coke or
I'll have a Coke, please, Alan. Yeah, just a Coke just to keep me going. So right, next comment. Thanks for that, Chris. We've got someone familiar here. Look, we've got Chris Bell. Thanks, Alan.
Hello, Chris.
Chris Bell, PC technician. Evening, Alan. How you doing? Give Monica a hello and hug from me. My first car was a Ford Orion 1.6i gear in Rosso Red. Wow. So that's the sort of stories we want to hear about. First car. So I wonder, Chris, was that a Mark 1 or a Mark 2? Interesting. So Chris has added another comment here. And he's saying the 1.6i engine was the same as the XR3i engines. Yes, it was. And those CVH engines were a right bar steward for black sludge, black death due to oil oxidization if they weren't looked after. So Chris has experienced some of this sludge that the other Chris was talking about.
Yeah, I don't ever recall any sludge on the engines, but there again, I'm going back so bloody far now. It seems like another life.
Well, it was a long time ago, so right. I hope I've not missed anyone's comments here. But hi, Chris. Nice to read your comments. Thanks for that. Oh, so Kay says you could turn the run-of-the-mill Escort Mark III 3-door into an RS Turbo replica using an Orion grille. Yes, that was right. And clear indicators, spotlights in the RS body kit. Hands up, who else did it? Flower pot back box. Yeah, that's a good point. The Orion, to make it appear different from the Escort, they gave it I'd say a unique grille, but as you rightly say, they used it on the Mark III RS Turbo. They also used it on, I think it was a couple of the cabriolets on the last one, the limited edition. They made a run of all white cars at the end of Mark III production, and that had the Orion grille on it as well.
Yeah, I think what you got to do, you got to use 2 fingers to scroll like that.
Oh, there you go.
Two fingers to scroll up and down.
See, I was just trying to be helpful while you did your drink, but
yeah,
we've probably skipped a few there. Apologies for that.
So you have Kay, you've got Sam here. Hi, Alan and Kevin. Hello to you, Sam.
Evening. How you doing, Sam?
It's Wednesday evening again. Time for some alcohol. Hope you got a drink. We haven't had a car talk for a few weeks now. It was more of a rant last week.
Yep, electric cars. We won't be talking about electric Orions. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you do this, just do 2 fingers to scroll up and down, and then 1 finger to
I'll let you do that. I'm going to cock it up, so I'll let you do it.
I mess it up half the time myself anyway. I tend to mute myself while I'm in the live streams as well. So,
Kay was previously Chucky, so no doubt Chucky's commented on some of your live streams before.
Kay previously Chucky.
They were cool, Alan. I had a Mark III Escort and used a 2-slack grille sprayed diamond white. LOL. Yes, very good. So he put it up on his Orion. Yeah, or his Escort.
So hold on a minute.
It's an Orion grille on his Escort. That's what he's saying. I'll get it right in a minute, Kay. Sorry about
that. Why have you changed your name to Kay rather than Chucky? Chucky's better. Chucky doesn't die. Chucky lives forever. Did you remember the end scene in the 7th film? Chucky gets away, doesn't he? He's a woman, and he's got another woman. They're a pair of lesbians, and they walk off into the sunset.
Cheers, everyone. I'm trying to hold the label because I don't want Alan getting in trouble on YouTube.
It was due to Chucky that I watched all the Chucky films again because they're brilliant.
Now you've got to watch all the K films again now.
Child's play films. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on. Yeah. Who have we got here?
Oh,
Hey, Vivian Hughes.
Hello, Viv.
Hi, Vivian. How you doing? Good evening, Kevin and Alan. Great to see you on the live stream. Orions were nice, especially the gears in that nice light gold metallic. Well, funny you mention the colours there, Vivian, because I just want to give a shout out to a couple of people if I can, because when I found out I'd be doing this live stream with Alan, I put some bits out on social media, and as we've seen on some of the comments this evening, quite a few people came back to me and sent me photos of their old Orions. So I want to just say hello to Danny Bennett. Hi, Danny. How you doing? He had a Paris Blue Mark I Orion gear 1.6, and he owned that in 1990, and he sent me a photo of that. So thanks for that, Danny. Darren Morley, he had a Mark II gear, and he's given me the reg. I have written it down. It was E318MMP, and he owned that in 1992. Craig Fevier, how you doing, Craig? He had a Mark II Orion. That was a kind of browny bronze color, and that was a 1.4L, which he bought from Raymond May's garage in Bourne, and that was D612 VFL, and he owned that in 1995. Last but not least, Alan Bosworth. Hi, Alan. He sent a photo of his Mark III Orion, which was one of the last, and he owned that in 1994. So, yeah, interesting. Different people like different colours, but as Vivian says, the old light gold looked pretty good on the gear. I think we actually saw a light gold one at the first TCH show, didn't we? 2021. There was a gold-coloured Orion there that year.
I can't remember it, but I know what colour you're talking about. It's quite a nice gold, actually.
One of those colours you don't really get today, isn't it? We don't seem to get much beyond black, white, grey, and probably a red, and that's about it, isn't it?
You get plenty of silver cars, but gold never seems to be like one of the mainstream colours, really.
No, I suppose it suited the Orion because it was more that kind of sort of appealed to that type of buyer, didn't it? Those colours.
I guess it's a bit like the colour of this whiskey.
Yeah,
really. Yeah,
that's it.
Which is going down rather well.
I'll let you move on. I'm not going to touch that because I'm going to mess that up.
You can't get it wrong.
Cheers, Vivian. I hope to see you at some car shows later this year, Vivian. So thanks for your comment.
We're learning the trackpad. You need 2 fingers
Yeah.
to do the trackpad up and down, and 1 finger to sort of like enter.
Too modern for me, isn't it?
Hello, hey.
Ethan. Hey, Ethan. Oh, this is an interesting comment here.
GP Song. Hello.
My first car, I was choosing between a Ford Orion or a Capri, and I went for the Capri S 1.6. Those are very rare now. Well, okay, we're talking about Orions, but I'm with you. If I'd have had the choice between an Orion or a Capri, I'd have gone with the Capri. Yeah, 1.6S. Wow. Awesome. So did you have the Sidewinder stripe down the side with the S at the back? That would have been cool, wouldn't it?
If they only made Capris today.
Yeah.
If they said, we're replacing the Mondeo with a new Capri.
Yeah, Ford need to make a new Capri. Okay, they make the Mustang and they've imported that into the UK, but we need a new Capri, don't we? That would be something. Keep the old styling cues on it. That would look lovely.
Don't do what Vauxhall done and make the Vauxhall Viva. Revamp it. Because I would have walked past the new Vauxhall Viva and thought, what the hell is that? It doesn't look nothing like a Vauxhall Viva. If they're going to make something to sort of like replicate the original, they should at least make it look like the original or similar. But the new Vauxhall Viva doesn't look like an original Vauxhall Viva. I'm sorry, Vauxhall, you've done a shit job. You want to go back to the drawing table and start again.
Well, they don't make it anymore. You've got to remember I work for a Vauxhall dealer, so I've got to be careful what I say, but they don't make the Viva anymore. But if we're splitting hairs, you could say Ford have done the same thing with the Puma. A lot of the purists who owned an original Puma, the new one's kind of an SUV now, isn't it? It's not really the spirit of the original Puma, is it? But there we are.
No, I think a lot of people would actually like things to be a little bit more authentic to what they originally were. People who years ago have bought a certain car, and the car manufacturer brings out that car again many, many years later, is people like us that would like to see similarities.
Don't ruin it. Don't slap Capri on some big SUV or something. Put it on a new Capri. That's what we'd like.
Hello, Mark.
I was not even born then. I imagine a lot of you weren't. So I was 10. I was 10 when the Orion was launched. So not too bad. And that photo that was on that Alan put up, that was actually me when I was 17 with my dad's Orion. So I haven't changed much, have I?
Yeah. Notice the thumbnail to the video. That was Kevin.
That was me. Notice
the 1980s look.
Yep. The bleached jeans. The Rick Astley haircut. Yeah. I said never going to give you up, and what happened? I didn't give it.
I thought I got mine from going too near them electrical transformers.
Yeah. Finn Hogan. Hi, Kevin. The beard looks good. Whoa, thank you. Yeah, making up for what I've lost on top. Suits you. Ask Alan to grow one. There you go. There's a challenge.
Oh, I've never had a beard. I've had stubble before that's got a little bit there, but it's like I'm not a beard person.
Yeah, it's
maybe one day if my razor breaks and I absolutely refuse to buy Gillette blades anymore, I might grow one.
Once you get through the itchy phase, it's all right, but it can be a bit itchy to start with. But I'm loving it in this weather. It's keeping me warm, so that's good.
Now here's a familiar name. Hello, Mondo.
Mondo, after the brush.
Evening, big fella. He calls me big fella.
Kevin, yay! Good to see you.
Hello.
It's quite surreal sitting here actually, because I've always watched these live streams like everyone else. So to actually be this side of the proceedings, and see all these familiar names, it is quite a strange one. Brilliant.
Well, it kills an evening.
Yes, it's good.
What else would you be doing? Watching BBC, by the way? I don't think so.
No.
I haven't got any more letters to open. They haven't sent me any more of their mail. So maybe next week.
Ethan's put, he's probably responding to something we said that we can't remember. Sorry, Ethan.
Hello, Mark.
Evening, guys. Evening, Mark. I get confused on this. So do we. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We're all confused.
My Ford Orion brought tears to my eyes in repairs. Oh, so many different coloured parts, gearbox mountings to clutch plastics. Oh. So yeah, and that brings up another good point. If you've got an Orion today, okay, a lot of the running gear and stuff is Escort, but let's say you've got an Orion and you need a back bumper. Where are you going to get one? If there's that few left, no scrapyards are going to have one, are they? So yeah, I suppose there's some companies probably got some new old stock sitting around, but where'd you find it?
I guess there's a Facebook groups for everything.
Yeah, I guess so.
The Orion Owners Club. I don't know if that exists. I'm just making it up.
There probably is. Yeah, we should have got in touch with them. They probably know more than we do.
I guess it's the same for like Morris Miners and cars like that. I mean, there are people out there that specialise in.
Oh, there's specialists, but my point this evening, why I wanted to talk about this, Morris Miners, they're out there 10 a penny. There's loads of them still, isn't there? But we, every show we've been to virtually, we've seen a Morris Minor. No offence to Morris Miners, because I love them. I think they're great cars. But Orions, we've only seen one. Only one this year, or last year, I should say.
I don't think, I mean, if they're the same, pretty much as Escorts, they did rust a lot.
Yeah, the steel,
and
they did rust, yeah.
This is half the trouble. That they're like rotted away, become MOT failures, people didn't repair them, they got scrapped. Or like someone would probably point out, they got put on the banger track.
Yeah. I don't know if they were quite gutsy enough, the smaller engine ones for banger track, really. But
well, I hear some of them did have the little 1.3
yeah,
valve engines in them.
Yeah, they did. They had the 1.3
Kent
engines. The difference on the Orion, they never actually put the 1.1 in it, which was the real baby engine that the Escorts had, but they didn't put that in the Orion, just the 1.3 upwards. I
know the 1.4 CVH was supposed to be a bit of a revelation when it was first introduced.
Yeah, the 1.3 would generally still have the 4-speed gearbox, but once the 1.4 arrived, you'd more often than not have a 5-speed with that. So it was a bit of a leap forwards at the time.
It's like when the 5-speed gearbox came out, it was wow.
Yeah. And now that seems old hat now, doesn't it? It's like if you haven't got a 6 gear. I mean, how long before we get a 7-speed manual? Probably won't get one, actually, will we? Because electric cars now, they haven't got a gearbox. It's just, that's it. So
I have Far Cry. That's a game. That's a PlayStation game. I've not played it. Do you know what? If the kid was here, he'd be able to tell us about it.
He ducked out the door at the start. You probably saw him at the back.
When he comes back through the door, I'll collar him.
Yeah.
I'll say, what's Far Cry like? I've heard of it. It's quite a big name, actually.
Now, I have to say, some of these comments here we've done, because I mucked it up, didn't I? So we did Mark's one, and we did K's one. We did that one. Bear with us. I think we're up to here.
All right. Try this one. Luke, Wallace and Gromit.
Yes. Can't have you all spoiling up, lad. Yeah.
Hello, Luke.
Hi, Alan. I'm too young to remember the Ford Orions, but imagine if Ford did an RS turbo version just like the Escort. Yeah, that would have been a good seller, wouldn't it? I think half of the problem with the Orion, there wasn't really a memorable sort of flagship one, was there? There was the XR3i equivalent. Everyone loved an XR3i, but the Orion equivalent was just called a gear injection. So it wasn't
Wasn't one of them Orions that was equivalent to the XR3i just about as fast as the
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, the gear injection. It was called a gear injection. So it wasn't such a sort of, didn't grab your attention, the name, did it really? I think to get a sporty connotation, you'd need to ditch the gear badge, really, don't you? You needed a separate identity. So calling it a gear or a gear injection, I don't know if it had the same impact as something like an XR3, but I have to just talk for a moment about the ultimate Orion. We're saying there wasn't really a flagship one, but there kind of was. And that was the Orion 1600E, which was launched in 1988. So they started life at the Ford factory. as a gear injection, which I'm talking about.
Notice the Cortina connection here with the E.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first time that name was revived. We had an Escort 1300E, a Cortina 2000E, but this was the first time that they had done the 1600E, revived the name. And as I was saying, they started life, left the Ford factory as 1.6 gear injections, and they were promptly sent off to Tickford, who you may recognize. They have ties with Aston Martin, and they also did the Tickford Capri in the early 80s. And what they did was they kitted these Orion gear injections out with a full leather interior, Granada Scorpio steering wheel, some nice 14-inch alloy wheels, wood dash, wood door cappings. They were really a very luxurious, upmarket, as the badge suggested, executive. For you youngsters watching now, we're talking about having an E badge on the back. No doubt if you look outside your house and a car has an E on the back today, it means it's electric. Not this, no. 1.6i, basically the XR3i engine. So this 1600E, they only made a very limited number of these, and they did it, I think it was in black, I think it was colour called Raven, Mercury Grey, and then they did a little run of diamond white cars as well. And I think when I looked on how many left, there's only 7 of those on the roads now. But to find one of those, that would be something special.
Would I be right in saying that was proper wood they used?
I wouldn't like to say.
I know
think it was
on the
proper wood.
Cortinas, when they used like the wood cappings on the door panels, that was real wood.
Yes.
Because I used to own one with the wood panels. I know it's all gone plastic these days, but back then they used it wasn't the greatest wood anyway, but it was at least it was real wood.
But they were a smart looking car, and it always fascinates me looking back now on these Fords of the 80s where they used to raid the parts bin. We've already spoken about the Orion grille was used on the RS Turbo Mark III Escort, but you know, it's quite amusing. How can we make this a bit more luxurious, this 1600E Orion? Oh, I know, we'll put a Granada steering wheel on it. So it's quite fun, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the thing. People didn't know that because they weren't a very popular car. So I guess the people who actually did own these high up Orions, they were probably quite pleased, I should think.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
They had quite a lot of buck.
And it was
bang for their buck.
Oh, a lot of equipment, a lot of stuff for the money. And also, as you say, because they weren't quite as popular, you owned something a bit more unique, a bit more individual.
Yeah, they certainly are individual now. If you've got an Orion that's in mint condition, bloody hell, you've got a really rare car.
Well, this was the thing I was saying about a lot of the survivors that I've seen over the past 5 or 6 years. They've been modified cars. Now, nothing against those of you out there that like to modify cars. Alan and myself, we loved seeing the modified cars at Yaxley Car Show last year, didn't we? There were some good ones there. But I kind of think now, if you have got an Orion and you're messing about and lowering it and dropping a Z-Tech engine, putting the big wheels on and all the rest of it, you're actually devaluing it. Because if you could restore that to factory spec, you've got a very, very rare car indeed. And I think it'd probably be worth more than if you tweaked it, but each to their own. What we got next? Well, who have we got next, I should say?
Hi, Mark.
Mark Wilson, evening. Evening. Oh, I had a D-Reg 1.4 Orion. It was red. Swapped it for my XR2 C-Reg. Or which I wish I'd have kept my XR2. Yeah, C-Reg XR. So that would have been a Mark II, wouldn't it? XR2. Now, did you have the pepper pot alloys on that XR2, or did you have the steel wheels with the wheel trims? So that's another thing, isn't it? People are so used to alloy wheels now. A lot of these, even the high performance Fords, still had steel wheels and wheel trims on them.
Yeah, some of the cars were very distinctive back then due to what wheels they had.
But the XR2 Mark II, that was my favourite. That was a good one. That Mark II Fiesta.
Hello, Mark.
Evening, guys. The 1.6i gear with the famous noisy fuel pump. What a car. So he had a 1.6 gear injection as well. Back to Mondo. CVH engine, VV carb, and its woes and conversions for automatic choke when it won't start. Yeah, a lot of people They, of course, forgot they had the manual choke, didn't they?
That was
The
very-
Mark IVs had the manual choke as well, yeah. Mark II, sorry. If I say Mark IV, I mean the Mark II because it was the equivalent of the Mark IV Escort. But yeah, manual choke.
This is the engine bit of carburetor. That's a variable Venturi. Do you know what? It's going back. This is the ones with the slider across the top of the throttle housing. I think they're like a I don't know, like a flap that slid across. I kind of remembering them now. There's so many incarnations of these bloody carburetors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what he's talking about. Yeah. It kind of brings back your memories, doesn't you? All these cars you used to own back years ago. And the little things that used to go wrong with them.
Which is why we do it, really, isn't it? It's why we talk about them.
It's like memory lane.
Chris, evening, Chris.
There you are, Kevin. You got a subscriber.
Yeah, oh, it's me he's talking about, isn't it? I was going to say I like Alan's friend as well, but obviously we're thinking about someone else. Yeah.
Well, me and Kevin, we go to a lot of car shows together, and we film the car shows. It's a day out, so Kevin's very knowledgeable with classic cars. Believe it or not, he likes to be modest, but he knows a bloody lot. He goes around all the car shows, and I just follow him with a camera, and he does all the talking.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like can't shut me up, but that's it. Lifelong interest in cars, so that's the thing, really, isn't it? So that's just my interest. Oh, we've got a Mondeo question, I think, here. Oh no, it's an Orion question. He's worded it Mondrian. It's very clever what you did there, Damien. I like that. Which version of Mondrian was the best? I've had 2 Mark IIIs and Mark IV, currently driving a Mark V. So I think, am I right, Damien? When you say Mark III, you're talking about the Mark I Orion, like I just got mixed up a minute ago, and the Mark IV was the Mark II. So you're currently driving a Mark V. If you're talking about an Orion and not a Mondeo, wow, we've got someone who's actually driving an Orion. So the Mark III Orion, Damien calls it the Mark V. That was launched in 1990. Killed off very quickly. 1993, Ford dropped the Orion name, so it only lasted 10 years. Same car was still in production afterwards, but it was rebadged as an Escort. 2 reasons they dropped the name. I can tell you the reasons. When it was launched, it was like, yeah, separate product. We want to call it Orion. We don't want to call it Escort. So why did they change their mind? Well, sadly, by the time of the Mark III, wasn't a very well received car at the time. The Mark V Escort, very bad press from the motoring press. So they hurriedly put a facelift through in 1992. It wasn't enough to save it. So 93, it had dropped out of the top 10 bestsellers. Mondeo had always been in the top 10 best-selling cars in the UK. Not anymore. And I think that, coupled with the Escort's sort of troubled image at that time, they thought, let's rebadge the Orion as an Escort, because essentially it was. And then all the Orions that did continue to get sold would then appear in the Escort sales figures. So it was a bit of sort of engineering the sales figures, I think, really, that killed the Orion off, which is probably a bit of a shame. But if you've still got one now, as you have, wow, good on you. So good for you.
we have Chris. Hello, Chris.
Oh, we mentioned about this sludging again on the CVH.
Occurred on 2 separate family cars with the serviced every year at Ford. I just saw it when I pulled the yellow caps off.
As an inquisitive child.
I don't know whether you're not talking about like a white, creamy, gungy stuff that would you take the oil filler cap off?
Yeah.
You'd see all this white, creamy gunge. They call it oil emulsification. It's basically water condensating up in the rocker cover. And you used to get that, through, well, sometimes through the manufacturers. They made a bad breathing system for the engine. And 2, a lot of short journeys. They call them a doctor's car. It would do half a mile down the road and back. The car would never warm up properly. They used to get a lot of that. So, well, that's what it is anyway. I think that's what you're talking about anyway. I remember that white, used to get that white creamy gunge a lot on Lost in Montegos as well. That was down to a bad breathing system. You'd pull your filler cap off and it'd be covered in it, blobs of it. You have to clean it all out. Don't get it in your eyes because it stings like hell. But yeah, I know what you mean. Damien.
So he's reworded his question to say which version of the Mondeo was the best. So we're probably not talking about Orions at all. So apologies. I've had 2 Mark IIIs, a Mark IV. I'm currently driving a Mark V. Well, Alan will probably have a different opinion to myself on that one. But if we're talking Mondeos, and why not? I'm going to say Mark III. That was my favourite.
The problem with the Mondeos, the 3, 4, and 5, they're all good, but they're all good for different reasons. If you want to be on the edge, it's a Mark III. If you want to be nice and refined, it's a Mark IV. And Mark V, if you've got the cash. There you go.
There you go. From the horse's mouth. There you are.
Because the Mark V, when it came out, believe it or not, it looked too upmarket to me. It looked too expensive. It looked more like an Aston bloody Martin than a bloody Ford.
Did. Big car.
So that's how Ford rate. But I think they made it too flash.
And I think the problem as well, what's kind of killed the Mondeo off, it got too big. Every generation, whenever they bring out a new model, it's always a bit bigger. But I think by the time I'm working at a Ford dealer at the time, Mark III Mondeo was a great seller. We still sold loads of those, but we really saw a drop in retail buyers coming through the doors once the Mark IV arrived. Really, that kind of was the start of the slippery slope downwards, because by the time the Mark IV came out, everyone who owned a Mark III or prior Mondeo that wanted to change it, they were coming in and buying a Focus because the Focus had got almost as big as the Mark III Mondeo. And likewise, a lot of those Focus buyers from the early Mark I Focus would buy the current or previous generation Fiesta because it had grown to a size it was almost as big, really. So yeah, I think it's a great shame. The Mondeo up to the Mark III was a great family car, but I think once we got past the Mark III, I don't know, it's probably just a good taxi. Alan, what do you think?
The Mark IV was the reliable car. It was the best of the bunch. It was the one. It wasn't the most exciting, but it was the one that would get you from A to B. The Mark III might get you there, but it was a bit rough around the edges. But it was more exciting to drive.
Yeah,
it was, a bit more ragged.
It did hold the road well. The Mark III. It was like it was on rails. Designed. There's a little trivia fact. I like giving these trivia facts. Mark III Mondeo was designed by the same designer who gave us the Volkswagen Passat. There we are. Let's see who's next. Cheers for that, Damien.
GP song.
Oh, we did that one.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. He's mentioned another bit. So he's talking about this Orion and Capri. Went for the Capri 16S. Oh, ended up getting written off after it wouldn't go around the corner on black ice.
Oh, dear.
I hope you were okay. That's the main thing there. But yeah,
black ice is nasty stuff.
Yeah.
The times I've gone at the top of the Alconbury Hill where the airplane sits in the hill,
God, yeah.
In my Granada, where I used to have it, and it would slide on the ice, and I'd think, what the hell is wrong with my suspension? And I'd have to put the car on the ramp and check it all out. There's nothing wrong with the bloody car. It's just black ice.
Just the ice, yeah. Tommy Booth.
Good evening, Tommy. Yeah. So
let's see who's next.
Michael Bryan. Hello.
I used an Orion 1.6 gear, not the I. Oh, not the I gearbox. Sorry, I used an Orion 1.6 gear, not the I gearbox, in an XR3i van conversion. Ooh. It went rather well. I bet it did. Yeah. So that's pretty cool because Ford did have a concept van on the Mark III Escort called the XRV, I think it was. They were going to do an XR3 van, but it never got beyond the concept stage. But you made one yourself. That sounds good. And there's another thing there's a subject for another evening, Alan. Escort van. What happened to all them? They've all disappeared, haven't they?
Well, flipping heck, yeah. You don't even think of them anymore.
My dad had one of those. His job, he drove a Mark III escort van. I think it was the 55L. So it was the bit better spec one. TEG 819X. Can still remember the reg number of that. So yeah.
I do remember the Morris Marina van.
Older Marina van, yeah. They were pretty cool vans, and that was replacing with a Montego van. The Maestro van, sorry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Maestro van.
Yeah.
And you'd see a lot of those with British Rail or something on the side, or British Telecom. The fleet buyers tended to use those, didn't they?
Mind you, they're only like, it's like they were car-derived vans, and it's like there wasn't really much. You could buy an estate car and probably did about the same, really. But
Yeah.
I don't know. They were handy things, though.
They were, but because it's a good point that Michael makes, it went rather well because the vans had less glass in. They were a lot lighter. So if you put an XR3 engine in one of those and running gear, that would shift, wouldn't it? That would really shift. Oh, this looks interesting.
Flea 72.
Flea 72. Hello.
Where do some of you people get your names from? I'd love to know.
Great usernames. We're getting some good names. Yeah. I've owned 4 Ford Orions over the years. Wow. 85 C Reg, 86 D Reg, 91 H. So that would have been one of the first Mark IIIs, and a 92 J. The D Reg was a 1.6i gear with heated screen and ABS. Yeah. Yeah, they had a heated screen.
That's a good point, isn't it? Because we're talking about spec earlier.
Yeah.
The Orion brought out the heated screen.
Yeah.
How was that for a bit of spec? It's
Yeah.
nice when it works, though, isn't it?
Yes. I always think those early ones, they're a bit like looking through net curtains sometimes, aren't they? You've got all the elements down across the windscreen, but yeah.
I'm not a windscreen expert,
No.
but if anyone doesn't know, windscreens, they're not one piece of glass, they're 2 sheets of glass. And in the middle, you've got like a plastic layer. And obviously, the heated ones, you've got the heating element in there. But every windscreen has, because a lot of people, they'll get a crack in their screen and they'll think, oh my God, it's going to cave in on me. It doesn't, because they're 2 separate sheets of glass bonded together. So anyway, carry on. I'm getting carried away. Heated windscreens were a thing on the Orion. It was a nice touch.
Yeah. Sam McLaughlin. Oh, this is going back. Alan, did you look at the WhatsApp message I sent you on the 14th of December, 2022? I think that means Alan can't remember. He's just going to have a look now.
Where are we?
I'll talk a bit of nonsense while Alan's just looking. First Orion Special Edition. Mark 1 Orion, no special editions at all, just the LGL gear injection. But when we got to the Mark II, we got the first Orion Special Edition, which is one of my favorites, and it was called an Orion Biscayne. And it had the white wheel trims on it. They only made it in one color, Biscayne blue. I looked how many left of those on the roads, and I think there's 3 left. Only 3. Have you got this message, Alan?
Right,
Have you got Sam's message?
Wednesday, the 14th of December.
That's the one.
It says, this video is no longer available. Please ask the phone number to resend it.
Sam, you need to resend it, please.
It won't.
Not available.
It's not available. So I know I haven't seen it.
No,
you have to redial it in. Yeah, send it again and I'll see it.
Okay, cheers, Sam. Kay's back again. Is that Kay, formerly Chucky? I fancied a name change. Okay, he just wanted to change his name, not Chucky. Mustn't say Chucky. K. The CVH engine suffered from oil stem seals leaking and breathing issues. Adding a small oil breather filter helped oil stem seals. And then I can't see what it says there. You could do up the drive. Okay.
That makes sense, you know. That brings a bell. Valve stem oil seals leaking oil. Well, the valve stem oil seals, the rubber seals, used to go hard and brittle, and the oil would just flow past them into the cylinder. and then you get blue smoke and exhaust. And what you've just said there about a bad breathing system is what causes all that creamy gunge to build up in the oil filler cap and in your rocker cover.
Cool.
But obviously, part of the cure for that would be longer runs.
Sorry, replied twice because I thought it missed my comment. Yeah, I probably did. I told you I'd stuff it up. Don't trust me with the IT stuff. But we got there in the end, so thanks for that.
Use 2 fingers. To scroll. That's it. You get it. You get the hang of it. I don't like trackpads; they piss me off. I like a mouse.
Give me a mouse. Yeah, nice mouse. Right, Luke. Oh yeah, we've had that comment. Cheers, Luke. Thanks for that one. Is that your WhatsApp message come through, Alan?
I've got it, Sam.
So it begins, Sam. This is proper multimedia. We're doing 2 things at once. This is multitasking.
So basically,
you got it now?
You're driving down the bloody street, and this car coming the other way decides to block the road on you, overtaking a car so you can't get through, even though you've got the right of way. Is that?
And so it begins again.
Don't even get me started. The amount of people who use the left-hand lane to turn right on a roundabout pisses me off. I think 80% of the people I come across seem to be going using the roundabout incorrectly.
It's like I always say, driving is great as long as there's no one else on the road. That's it, isn't it? Right, my John 64. We shall see what the comments say. My first ever diesel car was a B-Reg Orion. Only had it for 2 weeks because it wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding. I traded it in for a diesel E-Reg Peugeot 309 1.9 GRD. Peugeot 309. Hey?
God blimey. Huh.
That was the one. Was that the one they launched with the Berlin Take My Breath Away on the advert and driving along and all the field was catching fire and they called it the drive of your life or something, didn't they? Was that the one? Was that the 309?
I can't remember. I can only remember the Clio where it said, "Oh, Nicole,
yeah,
Nicole,
Papa Nicole,
come on, my Clio, get on my Clio."
Kevin Robert Frazier. Hi, Kevin. Escort with a boot. Yeah. I had the Gear 1.6 Orion. A lot of people had the Gear, didn't they? But much preferred the Mark III and Mark IV Escorts. Ford should bring in a new version of the Escort. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's wise. That's what we were saying about the Capri earlier. I do just want to pick up on this point Kevin makes, though. Escort with a boot. So a lot of people think it was a hurried thing. And, I know Alan was saying about they were trying to capture some of the Cortina buyers that weren't ready for the Sierra and the hatchback. But if you think about this Escort with a boot idea, Ford were basically copying Volkswagen, who had given us the Jetta, which was a Golf with a boot on the back. The Mark II Jetta, some people say the styling of the Orion was a bit, the boot didn't look right and it was a bit not great from the back. But I think you could say the same about a Jetta Mark II. It's like a Mark II Golf with a big boot grafted on the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Vauxhall followed suit not long afterwards, of course, but giving us, here's another one you'll remember, Alan, the Vauxhall Belmont.
Oh.
Do you remember that? Astra with a boot. So all the manufacturers were doing it at that time, and Renault 19 Chamard followed. So you had that lovely Renault 19 hatchback, and then they go and put that big boot on the back of it. So they were all kind of trying to get into that four-door market for buyers that didn't like a hatchback.
We're saying how rare Orions are.
Yeah.
How rare are Vauxhall Belmonts?
Vauxhall Belmont, yeah. I'd love to see a Vauxhall Belmont. I can't remember the last time I saw one. And I've been to the Vauxhall Heritage Centre twice, but they didn't have one there. So, yeah, Vauxhall Belmont. takes you back. I mean, some of these cars, let's be honest, they weren't great, but they're sort of in that category so bad that they were good. And like Alan says now, it's just fun to see one, isn't it? All this time later. Those of us that are old enough to remember, I will sort of stress that point. So I know some of our viewers here are sort of, they won't even know what a Vauxhall Belmont is long before their time. No. If you don't know what a Vauxhall Belmont is, Google it, have a look at a picture of one.
This is what I said. I'm sure I said this last week. I am glad that I have lived long enough to have been in that era where I drove some of these really old cars. Well, I'm going back to like the Marinas, the Cortinas, the Granada, the early Granadas, the Mark 1 and 2 Granadas. When you drove old cars like that, you will appreciate it more. How they used to drive. You actually felt like you were driving a car back then. I know a lot of these modern cars, they're very nice and refined and comfortable and everything. But years ago, it was fun. It was bloody fun driving a car. And even the breakdowns, it was all part of the deal.
Yeah, part of the journey.
Yeah.
And you felt you'd driven the distance as well, because you didn't have things like power steering and all of that. It was... I remember actually when my first Ford Escort didn't have power steering, and I remember trying to park that in a corner space at Peterborough in Queensgate multi-storey car park, and God knows how many turns of the wheel that took to get right in this corner space when I just started driving. But yeah, so who have we got next? Let's have a look. Tommy Booth. Loved my Mark IV 59 plate Mondeo. So he's got a Mark IV. Had it 3.5 years, 261,000 miles. Wow. Cam belt done 2,000 miles ago after the belt failed. Ooh, you had a narrow escape there then. 2-litre TDCi engine is awesome.
Did it break it? Did it break any rockers when the belt went? That's what I want to know, because they'll break all the rockers in the middle. Unless you got extremely lucky.
Yeah, I hope you had the tensioners and everything done as well. But 2,000 miles down the road, it can't be doing too bad then. So that sounds like that's going to go for a little while longer. David Smith. Good evening, Alan and Kevin.
Good evening, David.
Evening, David. Now, is that the David Smith that I know that we saw at Stamford Car Show? If it is, evening, Dave. Thanks for your comments.
I hope you got your beer out.
If it's not, if you're a different Dave Smith, not to worry. Whichever Dave Smith you are, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Paulie Walnuts. Oh, that sounds painful. I had the 1.8 diesel Orion. What a weapon. So was that the Mark II Orion or the Mark III? Because they had 1.8s in those. The Mark 1 had the 1.6. But yeah. And it's quite amusing talking about diesels and Orions and taxis and what have you. Ford have a well-known history of supplying cars for TV shows and films, don't they, Alan? So you think back to things like the Professionals, where they supplied the Capris and the Granadas and all that stuff, and the Sweeney. The Orion was never kind of in that hero category, was it? So I think they did have some on the press fleet, and there is one in an episode of Minder. I can tell you that for a fact. I think the Minder episode's called Windows or something like that. And there is a press fleet Orion used in that episode. And you can tell it's Ford press fleet, A, because it's got an Essex registration number, but B, it's got a GB sticker on the back. So it's always a bit of a giveaway that it's Ford press fleet. But no, by and large, there might have been one in an episode of Dempsey and Makepeace, but you know, on the whole, you'd probably see an Orion as a taxi in something like Bergerac or Lovejoy or something, wouldn't you? And that was about as iconic it got on the screen, unfortunately, because it just wasn't really that exciting, I suppose, is the word we're looking for. But
no, yeah. they weren't exciting cars, were they? I mean, to look at, they weren't.
No, I mean, the gear injection, I'll give you the gear injection did look pretty smart, didn't it? You had the pepper pot alloys and you had the red bumper inserts just to differentiate it from the normal gear. But I think it was the first one with a spoiler, actually, a boot mounted spoiler, was the Orion. It was called the Equipe. Ford called it the Equipe, but as you read it, it spells Equip. And they did that. It was basically the Orion version of the Escort Eclipse back in 1990. So they only did it in Pacifica Blue or Flambeau Red, and it had some lovely 14-inch alloys on, the same ones that they'd used on the 1600E that we spoke about. And that was quite a decent special edition. I wouldn't mind one of those now. Electric windows, tilt and slide glass sunroof, all the sort of bells and whistles that people wanted back in 1990. Great car, but it looked the part with those alloys and the spoiler. Color-coded mirrors as well. So yeah, all the bits and pieces. Very good. Matty England. Evening, Alan, Kevin, everyone. Oh, that's a nice greeting. Cool. Hi, Matty. How you doing?
Hello.
And then what's he got to say here? Matty also says, yeah, most of them rusted out. Yeah. Sadly.
Yeah, that was the trouble. We used to MOT a load of bloody... I remember all the cars from like the 1990s, the early 90s and that. Well, late 80s and 90s. Most of them were built of crap. The metal they made them out of wasn't very good at all. I think you had to get like something like a Volkswagen or an Audi to get the galvanized steel. But Ford and British Leyland.
Oh, British Leyland were the best, weren't they, hey? British Leyland, the joke was they started to rust before they left the production line, didn't they? But Alan and myself, we love a British Leyland car, don't we? We love the old Leylands. They're the days now, going back to the 70s. Hey, Paul and Fiona Troubles. Yes, I recognise that name from the live streams. Evening, guys. Oh, passed my test on a 1985 B-Reg. Oh, there we go. We talked about taxis. We didn't think of driving schools, did we? Driving school, Orion. Maybe, or was it your own car? Or somebody's in the family? But yeah, 1985 B-Reg. Even Kevin, Orion diesels had the Peugeot engine in them, as did the Escorts and the Fiestas of the 90s. Yeah, Alan was saying that.
Peugeot and Ford have had a long-running partnership.
Yeah.
Many, many years. I mean, I go back to the early 1980s. Maybe they were putting Peugeot engines in Sierras. So, yeah.
Hey, we've got a good one here. Look at this. T5 Jerry. Has Mr. Ruff got a dog? If so, is it known as Dog Ruff? Well, that's... Do you know what? When I took my driving test, the examiner made that joke. Yeah. He says that to me. That was a good one, isn't it?
Jerry come out with very good... Jerry's got very good hearing, you see.
Very good. That's not Jerry, though. There's a picture of Damon Hill, isn't it? That's Damon Hill.
But no, Jerry's actually come down the garage before.
Oh, wow.
He's come down the garage and he's met Monica.
Oh, brilliant.
He's met the women in the office and he heard the Rover 75 in the previous video. He said, what the hell? It sounds bloody awful. And I said, that's the air conditioning pump making a noise. The bearings are noisy.
That sounded Dog Ruff as well, yeah.
he's the only one who commented on that. But he was right.
Nice one. Cheers, T5 Jerry. Oh, great one. I recall converting my 4-speed Mark III Escort to a 5-speed. Oh, yeah. So if that was a 4-speed, what did you have in that? 1.3 high compression swirl engine, HCS, was it? And you put a 5-speed in it?
See, that's what people would do with their Cortinas. They'd take a 5-speed Sierra gearbox and try and fit it onto a...
Yeah, a lot of people do that with Cortinas. Oh, now, whoa, Craig Fevier. Yes, how you doing, Craig? Friend of mine. Evening. How's Donington looking this evening? Kevin, I put my Orion on 3 wheels. Wow. That was round the bend somewhere, I guess, then. I don't think I was with you when you did that. I remember Craig having his Orion. 1995, yeah. Oh, I think, if I remember rightly, Craig, you got your Orion just as my dad sold his, because the one in the photo that I was on the thumbnail, my dad had that. So I was 17. That was actually the first car that I properly used to drive, that Orion. So I did a bit of learning in it. And then when I passed my tests, I kind of did things the old school way. I saved up and bought my first car. So until I'd saved up enough money to buy that, my dad very kindly used to let me borrow the Orion occasionally, and I used to drive that. And Craig here, who's left the comment, he used to live in Spalding. So I remember taking that Escort up to that Orion, took it up to Spalding for a spin up there to see him. Yeah, so yeah, very good. Thanks for your comment, Craig. Good to see you. Mondo after the brush. When your Speedo started not to register, the diff side bearings had gone. Another well-known fault on the Ford gearbox. Heard of that before, Alan?
I've not heard of that, but I can tell you, I'm changing the subject a bit here. When the Speedo stops working on a Metro, because the gearbox was underneath the engine, it was because your engine oil get low, and there was a gear that drove your Speedo that would burn out or break. I can't remember now, but it was something to do with the Speedo, and the engine oil gets low on a Metro. If you remember them gearboxes used to be underneath the engine. So but I don't know about the Orion.
So have you ever, can you recall ever doing any work on an Orion at any point, Alan, in your years at Steve's, or not really?
No, I don't. Do you know, all I really remember is the CVH engines that went in them. Not really doing any work on them.
No.
We never really had any Orions. But I do remember them in the past. You know, we used to see them. They used to come in the garage to get for MOTs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I never really paid much attention to them because they weren't, you know, they weren't a stunning car, were they?
They weren't poster cars. That's the thing, isn't it? Who had a poster of an Orion on their wall?
It would have to be jazzed up a bit to be a head turn.
I think that's what we were missing from the Orion. We didn't have that really. I mean, even as a kid, you always go for the sporty model, don't you? We've had comments about the Capri S. That was always the one I liked, with the Sidewinder stripe and the S on it, or the 2.8 injection with the pepper pot wheels. But the Orion gear injection was pretty cool with the alloys, and I remember the red bumper inserts the best. That's what I liked about it. But as Alan says, there wasn't really anything overly exciting about it. It wasn't very aspirational, I suppose, is what you're saying. You didn't sort of aspire to like one of those.
It's like the Orion was like a. I mean, a lot of people would say Orion is an Escort with a boot, even though it was really supposed to be a standalone car.
Yeah.
But it looked too much, the front end anyway did, like an Escort. So you didn't pay that much attention to it. It was like, oh, maybe that's another Escort, unless you looked around the side and saw the boot at the back.
Especially on the Mark II, because they did look identical from the front.
But a Capri, my God. When you see that long sloping bonnet, you would think, bloody hell, how sexy is that car? Because Capris were like, everyone wanted a Capri back in the day, didn't they?
I still want one now. Yeah.
You could afford one.
Brilliant car. Yeah.
Even the Mark I Capris, they were nice.
Oh, yeah.
God, I'd love to have one now.
Michael Barnett, I always wanted an Orion, the one with the red trim down the side. Yeah, the 1600i gear injection, but couldn't afford one. Prices now, I still won't get one. That's true. Try finding one first. Can you find one for sale?
I know where there's a couple Capris. Oakenbury Western.
Is there?
There's a house there with a few Capris. In actual fact, I know where there's another. There are Capris about, but a lot of them are in the kind of condition where they've got plates welded all over them.
Yeah, a lot of work done to them. Craig's back again. Craig Fevier. My Orion had the Escort engine. Yes, you had the 1.4. You would have had the CVH in that, I think. 1.4 CVH engine.
They did put the Z-Tech in the last.
Yes, 1992 in the Mark III. They did introduce the Z-Tech engine. That was just before they facelifted it. So that's when they put the oval grille on the Mark III and the Escort Mark V, just to try and improve it. They put an oval grille on it and the Z-Tech engine, as Alan said. So it did sort of improve the performance. But an interesting fact on that oval grille, some people call it the smiley face, there was actually only one special edition Orion with that front, and that was the Orion Equipe. They carried the name over from the Mark II, put it on, wasn't a very exciting special edition, but it was on this Orion Equipe, and then they used the Equipe name again the following year on the Escort four-door, because my dad had one of those. He had a Cayman blue one, L-Reg. So, yeah, one of these names that keeps coming back. So Mark Wilson remembers the pepper pot wheels with a smiley face. Yeah. Matty's back. My mate had a standard Mark II Fiesta, but with XR2 pepper pots. Yeah, great.
They were a common wheel back then.
They were. I had a...
Tyler, stop there.
Oh, yeah, Tyler's back. Question.
What is, have you played Far Cry?
Yeah.
Well, come here. Someone wants to know, how good is Far Cry?
Depends which one you get.
I don't know. Far Cry.
That's all they said.
Just go for a generic answer.
Generic. I'm not generic. Special. It's a good game. Like, it's got a lot of gory visuals.
What's it about? What is Far Cry about?
Well, usually it's you overthrowing like a giant tyrant. Like this in Far Cry 4. It's
Like Boris Johnson?
No.
Okay.
Where the guy called Peng Min is like this. He enslaved this whole land of India.
Right.
And you have to kill him and overthrow him. It's a good game. You've got a lot of like driving around. You've got a lot of guns to collect. A lot of side quests. A lot of like explore places. You've got a lot of gory visuals where you like got broken fingers. You snap it back in place. Good game. Far Cry 5 is the best.
Okay. That's
Far
all
Cry
it was, because someone put on here Far Cry. Someone likes the game, so I've never played it. I don't know what it's about.
We
so.
didn't have a clue.
That's because you're too old.
Exactly, yeah.
Manhunt.
I'm still in the days of Manhunt.
I'm still in the days of Horace Goes Skiing. Anyone remember that? Horace Goes Skiing. Craig Fabier will remember that. He used to play that on his Spectrum, ZX Spectrum, where he used to load the cassette in. Do you remember those, Alan? I think they load the cassette on a Sinclair Spectrum.
I've heard of the Sinclair, but I can't ever remember using it.
They were brilliant. Yeah, Craig, if you're still watching, you'll know what I mean. Sinclair ZX Spectrum, Horace Goes Skiing. Look it up on YouTube, anybody. It's on here. Put in Horace Goes Skiing and you'll see what the game was. Brilliant game. And Turbo Esprit, that was a good one, where you used to drive this little Lotus Esprit Turbo around. You used to have to use your arrow keys to steer it. And as you tried to turn the corner, if you misjudged it, it would lock up and it would freeze because the software couldn't cope with it. It was quite good. Ford through and through. Yes. Kevin Robert Frazier. Now what we've got here. Mark Holly, it's all coming back to me now. What about the 4-way joystick speaker control? Yes, in the dashboard. And if you didn't have that there, it's just near the steering wheel, wasn't it? For your radio on the Orion. And if you had a lesser model that didn't have the joystick, then it had a little panel, just blanking plate over the hole, didn't it?
I remember them.
Yeah.
It's all coming back.
And there was, wasn't it I can't remember the model of the radio. It had the graphic equalizer, didn't it? The separate graphic equalizer. That's the one they put in the 1600E. Yeah, brilliant. Very good.
There was that point in time, wasn't there, where it was all about buttons, wasn't it?
Yeah.
More buttons, like a
80s.
BlackBerry phone.
Yeah.
More buttons.
But the graphic equalizer was a very 80s thing, wasn't it, in these cars? But if you think about it, you didn't really have time to be fiddling about with it when you were driving. You had to get it set before you set off, didn't you? But yeah, I remember that.
It looked good, didn't it? People wanted all the sliders. It looked good.
Yeah. And not a bad sound on those old tape decks, really, in the cars. They were pretty good. The Ford Audio. Yeah, very nice. Mark III Mondeo current 2.5 V6. Mark III 2.5 V6. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Nice engines.
Power. Mr. Kevin, what is your opinion about electric cars? Do you see any future? Well, this was Alan's bag last week, wasn't it? So I will say a bit. Go on, Alan.
Well, just go to last week. It was a rant.
I'll throw my little thing into the mix. So I mentioned I do work for a Vauxhall dealer at the moment, and Vauxhall's pledges that by 2028, every car in the range will be electric only. Do I see any future in it? I do actually see a future in electric cars, but I think three things actually need to change before electric will work. Number one, we need a longer range on the batteries between charges. Number two, they need to come down in price. They're a lot of money. A big price difference between a petrol and an electric at the moment. But thirdly, and most importantly, we need the infrastructure. You need to be able to charge your car on the go easily. You need to be able to find a charger a charger that no one else is using that works. I've had nightmare stories about trying to find one and then you get there and it doesn't work. So yes, I can see it in the future. Would I go and buy an electric car myself? Not at the moment, if I'm honest.
Well, you'd need to have a bloody good wage to actually afford one in the first place.
I'll probably be all right because I only do 30 miles a day to and from work. So a charge might last me a week. So I could probably do it, but I'm still a bit skeptical about whether the cost of using your electric to charge up your car, is it really going to be cheaper than petrol?
Not in a minute.
I don't know. So yes, I do see a future in it. And I think we've got to kind of go that way. I don't think we've got a lot of choice in it. As long as they keep the petrol available for all of us classic car enthusiasts, because we don't want to be stranded. And I hope they don't sting us. Everyone I know, all my friends out there with classic cars that we love taking to shows, that's going to, in a way, that's going to kill the classic car shows as well. If they put too much fuel duty on and it gets too expensive, people aren't going to make the distance, make the journeys with their cars, which is a real shame. But
the trouble is the climate craptivists and all these pushing for electric, they're trying to convert from fossil fuels to electric. It's not going to work, not at this point in time.
No, I think Alan's not at this point in time. I think
if they just made electric cars, I mean, there's nothing wrong with electric car if it suits your needs and you can afford it. They should make it an option. If you want an electric car and it does its job for you, then great. But the majority of us can't afford that luxury. We have to have a petrol engine or diesel engine. And it's either that we haven't got that. We can't buy an electric car because it's just not practical. And the charging and the cost of electric now is ridiculous. So if they made electric just as an option.
But I think as well, what I would add to that, because I don't like to be negative, we've got to move forward, progress, etc. I think it would work if, like me, you just do a short journey every day and you can just charge it at home. I think the real problem is when you're on the move trying to charge, we're so used to just pulling into the forecourt of a BP station or whatever, put some fuel in and away we go. But it's not that simple with an electric car. But there are certainly people I work with that have no bother with them. They drive electrics, charge it up at night when they get home, and away they go the next day. And they don't really have to worry about charging on the go. And I do like the ones that kind of charge themselves through the regenerative braking and all that kind of technology. That's pretty clever, where you don't have to plug it in. That seems a better idea. Because the other nightmare, of course, if you don't have somewhere to park, I mean, I don't want to give secrets away, Alan, here about where you live, but Alan's parking space, which he's kindly let me put my car in this evening, it's not outside his house. It's down the road. So how would you charge an electric vehicle living here?
You can't do it. You'd have to go to a public charging point, in which case they're going to charge you seriously over the odds for the electric.
Yeah.
And as if the electric is not as expensive as it is at the moment anyway. And this is what I was saying the other week. I was saying, even on the radio, they're saying people, even in their homes, can you keep your electric down to a minimum so we don't have blackouts? They can't even supply the electric. National Grid can't supply the electric to the homes properly, let alone if everybody owned an electric car, it would crash the National Grid.
Yeah, we're not ready for everyone owning one, not just yet. But
if they want to push it, they want to increase the infrastructure tenfold.
There's a lot of work to do. But then I suppose you could argue the same with the railways. They electrified the railways and now all the trains are electric. So we got there eventually. I think it's coming. I think it's in the future, but I don't think we're quite there yet. But if anyone's thinking of getting an electric car, if it suits your needs, go for it. I wouldn't deter you from doing it.
I'll just finish my little bit. Electric cars don't have a soul. Gasoline does.
They don't have an engine, they have a battery, they have a motor. They have a motor, don't they? But anyway, thanks for that. That's a very interesting point. As I said, that's a complete other subject, isn't it, really? Mondo's back. CVH had bad tarnish within the cylinder head and flaky black carbon. Yeah, this is what you said, Alan. The sludge in the cap was normal if you did short journeys. Just wipe it after you top the oil up. There we go.
I used to remember spraying it, getting an airline and spraying it, and shit would fly everywhere. Horrible stuff.
Right, we've got Richie674. Hi, it was the overhead valve 1.3 HCS engine that used to get the yellow creamy froth due to poor breathing system. So I had to remove the rocker cover every few months to clean, and what pain that was. Well, that's interesting because I had a 1.3 HCS engine and I never had any bother with it. So I suppose...
I've seen it on many cars. I mean, a lot of it, like I said, it was either bad breathing systems, blocked breathing pipes, engine breather pipes, or or just short journeys that caused it.
Hey up, T5 Jerry's back with his Damon Hill picture. This one's for you then, Alan. Go on.
Alan, you will be teaching Kevin your extensive range of sound effects, and you will be teaching him how to throw car parts into the waste.
So I think what he's talking about is, now I've got to try and do this justice. He's talking about the chucking it in the skip, in the Mick George skip. Is that what you mean? I can't do that as well as Alan.
It's all about, you see, I don't want to be like a talking head on the video,
like me.
This is a car, it does 10 miles to the gallon, and it goes around corners on rails. You've got to add some life into that's the point. You've got
that's the one. That's the one.
You've got to add some life into the bloody video. Wake people up.
That's the one. Yeah, Alan's here to wake them up. I'm here to send you to sleep. So we're doing all right between us. Oh dear. Right. Cheers.
I just like to be a prat. I just like to act like stupid on the videos. It's just what I like to do. Love it or hate it. That's me.
Right. Never known a CVH get froth as better breather system. I had 2 Sierras with a 1.8 CVH and never frothed once in the 10 years I owned them. Yeah, so same with mine. Mine never frothed up. So interesting, isn't it? Different people's experiences. Stephen France, I think the Mark III was a Brill car, much better than the Mark IV. Oh, this is mate, you with the Jonah look. My Jonah's still going Mark IV 2-litre TDI Euro 4 crap.
You see, anybody who read, I keep going back to this, Jonah, the story of Jonah. If any, shall I go through it again, just to refresh your memories?
Come on, tell us about Jonah.
It's like a biblical story. They're all on a boat, okay, and there's no wind. The boat's not going nowhere. And there's one guy on board, they're all suspicious of him, and he's called Jonah. So they think he's the cause. They think Jonah is the cause of there's no wind. He's bad luck. So they fling him overboard. Once they've flung him into the water and he's toast, the wind picks up, the sails fill with wind and the boat's off. And that's the story of Jonah. They got rid of him, didn't they? They flung him overboard because he was bad luck. So when you get a Jonah car, it's lots of things go wrong with that car. So you generally put the car in the auction so it's somebody else's problem.
Right, I've got to just go to this next comment because it's caught my eye, Alan. This is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Mondo after to brush. Shall I read this? Absolute genius. I remember pulling up in the town with my Mark 1 onion. Oh, yeah. People call them onions. Mark 1 onion. Love it. Brackets brought tears to my eyes. Yeah, great joke. And 3 drunken girls jumped in thinking I was a taxi. Happy days. Large CB aerial on the roof for scanner. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yes, because they were the days of the CB radio, weren't they?
That's it. Breaker.
It was 1.9 for the truckers and 1.4 for the normal
the channels. I can't remember now.
I think it was 1.4 maybe, just for everybody. I know channel 19 was for truckers.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Did you have a CB in your
Cortina? I used to have a CB many years ago.
What was your handle?
I can't even remember now.
Oh,
it was probably Gerbil.
Gerbil. Everyone wanted to be Bandit, didn't they? After smoking the Bandit, I remember that. Breaker. What was it? What was all the language they used to use? 10-4 was I'm all right or something. 10-4, good buddy, and I can't remember now. What's your 20? That's the one I'm thinking of. What's your 20? Which is where are you? What's your 20?
It's a bit like bingo, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Craig Fevier, evening all from Spalding.
Hello.
The road. Hi, Craig. Nigel Impey, I had 2 Mark 1 Focuses, 1.6 Z-Techs, and loved them. Even though when they first came out, they looked weird. Yeah. One I wrapped the back end and around a metal lamppost. Oh, after aquaplaning and hitting a verge. Yeah. Well, you had your independent rear suspension on those, didn't you? And they were actually quite a good handling car. I had a Mark 1 Focus, the facelift one, and that was a 1.6 engine. Yeah, probably the best car I've ever owned. That was actually good car, very good.
Yeah, they're good in the wet, aren't they? It's, you know, the front wheel drive cars.
Yeah,
I always remember following an Escort around this long sweeping bend, doing it at 50 miles an hour, and I was in a rear wheel drive Cortina. The Escort just went around the bend and away, and my Cortina just lost the back end, and I ended up going up the grass verge.
yeah. What's Nigel got to say here? Sorry, Nigel, wrong one. Right. So I've done that. Your next comment was what I meant to hit. Oh, I had a Scorpio Ultima that had a heated screen. Yes, that was top of the range, the Ultima, wasn't it?
Nice car.
Did you have was that an Ultima interior that you put in yours, those leather seats?
Yeah, I had the Scorpio Gear. It wasn't an Ultima because I couldn't afford one, but I got the Ultima Gear, the Ultima seats, the heated seats with all the black leather seats, and put them in, and they were all working. They were lovely. But yeah, if you had a Scorpio Ultima, that was the top of the bloody range. That was nice.
Nice car.
The thing I found the biggest flaw, the Achilles heel with them cars, was the automatic gearboxes were crap.
Yeah, you had a lot of trouble with yours, didn't you?
Yeah.
Had it rebuilt and then...
I don't think I was the only one.
No. Right, thanks for that, Nigel. Cheers. Oh, GP SOMG again. I had a Mark II Mondeo, very cheap on parts, yeah, and to keep it on the road. Head gasket failed, so I swapped it for a V6 Cougar X-Pack. Lovely car, yeah. Now, we're talking about names being reused. So Cougar, spelt like that, that was like... it replaced the Probe, didn't it? It was like a very sleek coupe, but the Cougar now, of course, is a 4x4, isn't it? The SUV type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were quite an unusual car. In America, they badged those as the Mercury Cougar, because Mercury was a sort of branch of Ford, wasn't it? It was another brand that they owned. But they were pretty cool cars.
It's funny, a lot of these short-lived cars, weren't they?
Yeah. Because do you remember the Probe before that?
Yeah.
The Probe, that was kind of hailed as being the new Capri, but I don't think it ever really hit the mark, did it?
It wasn't the same.
No, that didn't cut the mustard. Right. SI traded in my Mark III XR3i for an E-plate Orion gear, both in red. Great cars back in the late 90s. So that would have been the bright red, I guess. Rosso red or something, sunburst.
Rosso red, or it was flame red, wasn't
Darren Mears, yes, good point, Darren. The Orion back screen had a built-in aerial for the stereo. Yes, it did. That was a feature. The Escort's Mark III at the time still had a exterior aerial, but the Orion's was built into the rear windscreen, and that was then carried over on the Mark IV Escort as well. So yeah, nice little feature that.
It's kind of things you don't even notice anymore.
Which Orion had the plastic white wheel trims? That was different to the rest. Yeah, well, UK market, it was the Biscayne, I think it was, special edition 1987. But I've got a feeling then in 89, they might have put white wheel trims on the Orion Classic. I could be wrong. I know there was a couple of special editions in France that had the white wheel trims as well. But I used to like those tri-coat white wheel trims. Do you remember those?
I do not ever remember white wheel trims on an Orion, but then again, I was never really looking here that hard.
They were kind of pearlescent sort of finish. They used them on the Fiestas quite a bit, and then they carried them over to the Orions. Pretty cool. Oh yes, and I'm loving this comment. They did a Mark III Encore limited edition, 1991. Yes, they did, and that was my favourite Mark III Orion, the Encore. So they did that in Flambeau Red or Bahama Blue, and it was basically the equivalent of the Escort Encore. So you could get an Escort or an Orion, and I think that was the best Mark III Orion, that Encore. It just looked really nice, had a unique sort of set of 14-inch wheel trims on it that looked like alloys, but they were actually wheel trims. Yeah, that was a great car, that one. Very nice.
You're getting the hang of this trackpad now.
I think we've just done that one, didn't we? Traded my Mark III for an E-plate Orion gear, early 90s. Both great cars. Wish I still had them both now. Yeah, I think we all say that about our old cars.
Yeah, they'd be worth a penny or two.
Yeah. Brian 22640. I had a Mark II Orion. I used it as a taxi, and it did 365,000 miles.
That was good.
Wow, that was a good one. Yeah, they were popular taxis.
What was that, a diesel or a petrol?
I'm guessing that would have been a diesel. I don't think a petrol would have done that many miles, would it?
Well, it depends how many engine changes you might have done.
Yeah, was that like Trigger's broom, or is that? No, that's the original engine, isn't it? That's the original. Gotta be.
You know, back then, Brian, you could set your speedo to whatever mileage you wanted, couldn't you? Just so you know, you could flick it round with a screwdriver.
Yeah, they actually had the numbers on cogs for the younger viewers. It wasn't a digital panel; it was actually numbers on cogs that clicked round as you did your miles, didn't they? Yeah. Or of course, if you fancied it, just keeping your mileage down, you just unscrewed the speedo cable, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's before they changed it all and put it on the MOTs, all the previous mileage history.
Yeah. Dwayne Kelly, hi. Glad to say I still have a Mark III Ford Orion. 1.8 Zeta, 130 brake horsepower in gear trim. I'm in Ireland and it's imported from UK. Brilliant.
Pretty quick one.
Keep hold of that, Dwayne. That's got to be one of the last, the Mark III's, isn't it? Yeah, 1.8 was the favoured engine then. It seems strange now in this era of little 1 litre 3-cylinder engines, but 1.8, that was sort of the 90s. They decided they were going to go down the 1.8 route for the, because that's another good point. The gear injection on the Mark III, they then renamed that as the Gear SI, rebranded that one. So yeah, very good. We've got to change the topic now from Flea 72. Oh, off topic. An ex-neighbour of mine had a Ford Sierra 2000E. You can use a mouse with a laptop, Alan.
I know you can, but you've got to program the Bluetooth in, and I can't be bothered.
Yeah, 2000E Sierra. What a great one that was. That had a smart set of wheels on that, didn't it? And was that kind of two-tone? Did it have like that lighter grey underneath, or was that a different one? But yeah, I remember that the Sierra 2000E, very nice.
I would have preferred the Cortina 2000E.
Yeah, the Mark III 2000E. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? That was the 405. Thanks for that. He's talking about that Peugeot advert that I was trying to remember. Peugeot 405.
Set the world on fire.
Yes, that was the one. Thanks for that. Brilliant. I knew it was a Peugeot of some sort.
Peugeot, they've made, how many cars have they made over the years? It must be bloody hundreds.
Loads.
You look at all the different Peugeot numbers, 106 and on and on and on and on and on. There's no end of it. You're flipping out. Can you imagine listing all the Peugeots?
Well, I think the problem with the Peugeot system is the numbers, because we're talking about Orions. So you can, if you use a name, assign a name to a car, it's easier to remember it in your head. Sierra, what does that look like? But when you start talking about 106, 206, 207, 208, and it kind of, 205, I remember. I learned to drive in a Peugeot 205, and that was a great car. But some of the others, you hard place the numbers, and some of them they've put double O's in, didn't they?
Yeah, 3008, and oh my God, it gets confusing.
Was the one with the slidey doors the 1007?
1007. 1007. I actually like them doors that go like that, but it's like we had a 1007, and someone lost the key to it. The transponder fell out the key, and we had a right to do with it to try and get it fixed again. It's quite a nifty little car, the way the doors work.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the car ain't so good, but the doors were nice. If you're in a tight parking spot.
Yeah. A bit like the Ford B-Max, but that was just the rear doors on those. But yeah, not a bad idea, but probably not the most stylish of cars,
was it? Fords had the suicide doors.
Oh, that was the Vauxhall Zafira, was it? Was it Zafira or Mariva?
Mariva.
Vauxhall Mariva, wasn't it? Yeah, in the 2000s. That had the suicide doors, yeah. Curbside Classics. Hi, Alan. Hi, everyone in the chat.
Hello. Curbside Classics.
No, that's a long name. Something like Beano #1 Superhero. I got there in the end. It took me a while to read that. Good to see you guys. Great idea with this, both of you. Oh, thanks. I didn't want to ruin it. Thought, don't want to jump in.
It makes it more. I always say the more people get involved, the better. I don't want to be the one, like the one-man band where he's got the drums and the cymbals and everything, and he's boom boom. I don't want to be that. I want more people, everyone involved. Get everyone into the picture. That's what I mean. It's like on this stream, I keep saying, I can send links out so you can all get yourself on the screen and you can have a rant or have a talk or whatever you want to say. So later on, when we work it out, we can get more people on the screen, or if you're local, you can come around here and join the bloody hell in with it and just talk about shit. I don't know. I don't care. So it's nice to have Kevin here to talk about this.
Cheers, thank you.
It saves me doing it by myself all the time. It's social, isn't it? It's just not sitting down watching the BBC, is it? It's
Well,
just making your own entertainment.
It's great to be here. And from my point of view, it's good to chat with you all as well. It's great to read your comments. So this is exactly what I had in mind when I thought about the Orion, because we're getting some great stories and some great memories. So it's really good. So Beano #1 Superhero says, I had a 1.6L back in maybe the mid-90s. Very light car, if I remember, front-wheel drive. But I gave very little money for it, and after 2 years, I sold it for more. Ooh, bit of a wheeler dealer. Very good.
Cool. Can you imagine what it's worth now?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
So we've now got, is Mondo back again? Remember my dad kicking off to get my priorities right, buying driving lamps instead of getting your spare wheel fixed. Yeah, a lot of people used to like buying the accessories for their cars. Did you have the driving lamps? Did you have the ones on the bumper, like on the XR3i that sat on the front of the bumper, the round ones? They were the best, weren't they? They were good ones.
You don't think of that shit no more, do you?
You don't. Who thinks of putting a set of driving lamps on a modern car? You don't do it, do you?
Got to get down to the auto part shop. There's these flashy flipping spotlights I want to get.
Yeah.
Ray dot fireballs.
Oh, wish I still had it. It says Beano #1. Yeah, I bet you do. John Ladd.
Hello. How are you? I'm doing fantastic. I feel a bit tipsy. I've had a whiskey and I've had a beer.
A beer chaser. Nice, Orion. I used to have 1.6i gear, so that seems to be quite a thing, doesn't it? A lot of you had 1.6i gears. Very good. Oh, yeah, I knew a few folk that crashed them due to the back end swing out on them. Yeah, and I know a few people that forgot the boot was sticking out the back and reversed into things with them. So, yeah, not great. What we got here? Brian 22640 had a Mark II Orion. Oh yeah, we've done that. So it was a 1.8 diesel. He's answered that. So 1.8 diesel. Michael Barnett, Ford cars with added boot, Escort Orion, great. Sierra with the Sapphire, great, but the Mondeo in my eyes, ugly. Interesting. My dad had a Mark I Mondeo 4-door GLX, and it was, I suppose it was a little bit perhaps didn't suit the shape so well, but I didn't mind it. But Sierra Sapphire was the best, really, wasn't it? That looked awesome. Great car.
You know what they say? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely.
That's why I owned a Scorpio, because I thought it was beautiful.
Not everyone liked that, did they? That was a controversial car at the time,
It was called the fugly car.
Yeah. It had those sort of headlights like eyes and the big mouth, didn't it? And that was the sort of, unusual styling that Ford went for there. It was quite controversial, really, wasn't it? Tommy Booth. Luckily, no rockets broke. My longest Mondeo ownership is my current. Had the ST220. Ooh, back when I passed at 17. Blimey, how did you get insured on that? It was a good car. I'm 25 now. Had 4 Mark IIIs and 2 Mark IVs. Well, good for you.
Flipping heck.
Nice one, Tommy.
You've gone through some cars.
Yeah. You have more cars than I have.
What happened to them? Did you crash them or
Yeah.
did you sell them?
Yes. Hopefully you just sold them. K's back again. I had 3 Mark II XR2s in the noughties. They were fun, but they didn't half rust behind the plastic arches and the skirts. I didn't pay any more than £100 for them. I had a B and 2 C reg. Taught me to weld.
That was the beauty back then. You could go down the road and you could just buy a pile of crap. It would have an MOT ticket on it, and you could just drive it for a year and have a lot of fun.
For £100, yeah.
Yeah, cheap as chips.
Brilliant. Now, if that was today, with car prices, that'd probably be about $2.5 grand, wouldn't it? Yeah. Craig Fevier back again. Hi, Kevin. Oh, there is a Vauxhall Belmont in Boston Classic Car Club. Wow.
Thanks for that.
Well, Craig belongs to Boston Classic Car Club. I know one of your viewers has a Mark 1 Nissan Micra. Craig owns a Nissan Micra. That's his classic car. He's got a Mark 1 K10. So there's a Belmont. Right. Hopefully we'll get to see that this year then, Alan, won't we? We'll try and get to a show where Boston Classic Car Club have got this Belmont, and we'll have a good look at that. That'll be good. Mick Ramo, Onion. Yeah, that was the nickname for it, the old Onion.
Ford Onion.
What we got here? Sam McLaughlin. That's what I thought. WhatsApp message. The other driver said it was my fault. But as you can see, it's clearly not my fault at all, and my insurance is deeming it as their fault as well.
Oh, what did you actually collide with it?
Did you have a
Because from what I saw, the other car coming the other way was overtaking a parked car, which meant you were in the free part of the road.
You have the right of way, definitely.
Yeah. So you're definitely, any insurance company would see that you're in the right.
Deeming it as their fault as well. Quite right. Well, I hope you get that sorted all out, and I hope there's not too much damage to your car. Curbside Classics. Had 2 Orion 1.6i gears, one a B reg and one a G reg in red. Gears again, 1.6i. Anybody out there have one of these special editions we've been talking about? Anybody have a 1600E? That's the real one, isn't it?
You would think that gear used to be the top of the range, but it sort of like became a sort of a lower level.
Well, they dropped it, didn't they? Ford did the gear up to about 2007, 2008. Still had it on the Mondeo and the Focus. But when they facelifted the Focus, the Mark II, when that got its facelift, they dropped the gear badge and they went to titanium instead. So titanium kind of took over from gear.
Oh, that's the damage.
Oh, we got a picture of the damage.
Yeah, so that's
a scrape, isn't it?
Driver's front side bumper and wing.
Yeah.
So you did hit the car.
Well, he hit you, we should say. Yeah.
Well, he's definitely in the wrong, obviously, because he's overtaking a parked car. There should be an open and shut case.
Right. Look at this. We're talking about 1600Es, Alan. John Ladd. One of my mates scrapped a 1600E. He actually drove it to the scrap yard. I said to him, "What are you doing?" Well, he's a mug, because that would have been worth a mint now, wouldn't it? 1600E scrapyard.
The trouble is that when you do these things, you don't realise what's round the corner. A few years later on, that's the problem. And
it's easy to say now, isn't it? But you've got to have somewhere to keep it. You've got the expense of maintaining it, insuring it.
Yeah.
Not always practical, is it? I mean, even if you kept it and parked it up on bricks somewhere, it probably wouldn't be in a great condition now, would it? Not really.
In hindsight, if we all knew these things, we'd all be rich today.
Yeah. Liam Woodcock. This looks like a question, Alan. How much does Snap-on scanner to update? Does he mean how much to buy one, or
no? The way it works is you kind of buy the scanner, and then they will have you under subscription. They'll keep coming around and updating all the software because you're paying for all the information that goes on the scanner from all the manufacturers. And I'm not sure what they charge. I don't even look at the price, but it ain't cheap. It's probably £300-400 a pop. Or maybe more than that. It certainly ain't cheap. It's not worth the money, I'd say. But what can you do? You're kind of stuck with it.
Cheers, Liam. Right, GPSOMG, 1985 Ford Orion 1.6 gear, Minder, Series 8, Episode 2, bouquet of barbed wire. Wow, 1991, the vehicle reg details B323RLS. Oh, well, Series 8. Oh, dear, I'm going to be really geek out now. Series 8 of Minder, that was the series with Gary Webster, wasn't it? Not Dennis Waterman. That was the later series. So that would have been a second-hand Orion by that point, wouldn't it? I was talking about the press fleet, the contemporary one in that other episode, but interesting to know. So if you want to see a Mark 1 Orion gear, for those of you that are too young to remember what we're talking about, check out Minder, Series 8, Episode 2. Brilliant. So RLS, I don't know where that would have been registered.
Sam drives the Mercedes. Look at that. That's the
Or was that I think that's the Mercedes that hit him, is it? The other car that was coming around the corner? Because that's a different car. I think it was the Mercedes
you're the
coming at him.
I see.
Yeah, this is the damage to the third party car. That was the Mercedes that was coming around the corner.
Yeah, door, wing, bumper.
We're doing what most people do today. We're not paying attention to the chat. We're looking at our phones.
Anyway, let me put the phone away. There, it's gone.
Steve Perry. Steve Perry wants your attention. There you
Hello,
go.
Steve. The hammer you sent me is still clean. It's a very nice little hammer. And then pullers are going to come in handy as well.
Derek Kane, hi there. Love the chat. My question is, I have a leak in my Mark IV Mondeo hatchback in the boot area only. Any ideas? Thanks. Mark IV in the boot. Well, it won't be window rubbers on those, will it? Because they're bonded windows.
No, I should probably say I would take your rear lamps out and check the seals there. They got little foam seals, rubber seals. Check them that they're not broken, anything like that. Or check your boot seal. Make sure there's nothing wrong there.
Right. John Ladd's back again. Right. John Ladd, you're fascinating me. You seem to know everyone with these Orions. Look at this. I have an old mate who has a black Mark II Orion 1.6i gear, one owner from new, sitting on his driveway for the last 20 years.
Bloody hell.
I think you're the Orion expert, John, not me. But thanks for that. So we've got Paul and Fiona Travels. My first taxi was a Sea Reg bright yellow. It was. All the punters used to call it the yellow banana. At times it was just embarrassing bright as the sunglasses material. Oh, so you had an Orion taxi. Is that right? Brilliant. Here we go. Matty England, Jet Set Willie. Does that mean anything to you?
Jet Set Willie? I don't know.
We're probably behind on the comments with the conversation. Sorry about that. Oh, it was a game, isn't it? Computer game. Jet Set Willie. Of course it was. And then John Benton saying, I used to play Paperboy on my old Commodore, the old Commodore 64. Yeah. Wow. So we're getting some of these good old games coming out now. Well, this is our era, isn't it? We're on this. Sound 2000 stereo cassette player, early type, which does not require a security code. Oh, yeah, good point. Power amplifier, 2x graphic equalizers. You could still buy those radios on eBay for 200 quid. Wow. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good point. Ford in the, I think it was late 80s, wasn't it? They brought out this key code anti-theft thing where you'd have to type your 3 numbers in from your radio buttons if the battery had been disconnected. I remember that. I remember I bought my first Ford Escort, didn't come with the radio code. I was a bit gutted. So I had to go to the Ford dealer and pay, I think it was 10 quid to get my code once the battery had been reconnected.
They used to have people who just specialise in that. They come around radio decode companies and stuff.
Stephen Law, I have a load of old Ford Haynes motor manuals and over old cars. Where would be the best place to put down for sale?
I mean, everything's on eBay, isn't it?
eBay, I would say, yeah. But the problem is you've got a lot of competition on there. You don't always get the best price.
Well, let me put it this way.
Or take them to a car show. If you go to a car show, local classic car show.
Yeah, but if you're advertising it on the World Wide Web,
Yeah.
the headline is all important. The title, how you word it, how you're going to sell it. That's what matters. That's what people grab. You've got to give people the kind of hope that what they're buying is going to be authentic and good and it's going to work. Or even though it's a book, you know, if you convince them that it's something special, they'll buy it. That's the thing. When people want to buy something, they want to read something that's cozy. They want to read something that sort of like says everything's going to be okay.
See, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Haynes manuals, because they are very popular, but the kind of market for them is people that have just bought that type of car, because you can bet if somebody's got a classic and they've had it for a while, they've probably already got a Haynes manual for it. So if someone's just suddenly gone out and bought, I don't know, bought a Metro from an auction or something, they probably wouldn't mind a manual for it. But if they've had a Metro for the past 5 years, they've probably already got one. So it's a tricky one, but good luck with that. I hope you manage to sell them. John Benton, as a mobile service engineer doing 200 plus miles a day, going electric at the moment for us is not the way to go yet. No, that's what I'm saying. You can't do those sort of miles if you're traveling 200 miles. Electric isn't going to work at the moment, is it? Okay, Craig Fevier. Oh, he's replying to my comment about his computer. Kevin, I've still got the computer and that game. Text green, game over. Oh yeah, you used to say game over at the end, didn't it? Do they still do that on the modern games?
No.
Game over. That was such an 80s saying, that was, wasn't it? Game over. And I think Flea72 here has got, yes, I remember Horace goes skiing on the Spectrum. I liked a game called Starquake, I think it was called. Preferred the Commodore 64 though. What about the Acorn Electron? Anybody have one of those? There used to be some good things.
I don't remember the Acorn Electron. I remember the Commodore.
Cousins72, how much for a battery on electric cars and service life? I'm guessing it's going to cost you $6,000 for a battery. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it'd be round about that figure.
Yeah, that would probably be a cheap one. Service life. Oh, I've heard the service life on these batteries are like 12 to 15 years if you're lucky.
But it's a good point, because it's like, isn't it? You get a mobile phone and it's brand new, it will hold the charge. After a while, that starts to drop, doesn't it? And it's going to be the same with cars. The batteries will start to naturally deplete after a while. This
is our big argument of it all. You can buy a second-hand car. If it needs a new engine, it's going to cost you a couple grand probably. Say, like I pointed out a Vauxhall Corsa, it's going to cost you £2,000 to buy a second-hand engine and fit it into your second-hand car. If you buy a second-hand electric car, that's if you even want to buy a second-hand electric car. Who would? You're going to be worried about the battery, and if you have to replace the battery, it's going to cost you what, $6,000 upwards for the battery.
Yeah.
Can you afford that shit? I don't know.
It's a real issue, isn't it? And I think this is the problem we've got now. So one of the comments earlier, we was talking about getting these old cars for £100, driving them around for a year and then selling them on or getting another one. I don't think anyone's going to want to buy a 10-year-old electric car, are they? It's all right if you can afford a brand new one and you change it every 2 or 3 years, but
you're laughing there.
But the older ones, it's a real tricky one, isn't it? But I think at the moment we're still in that infancy of electric cars, aren't we? And we're not down the road enough to see what happens. We're going to have to revisit this. We'll make a note, Alan. We'll do another live stream in 10 years if we're both still around, and we'll see what's happened on the electric car front. It'll be interesting, won't it? John Ladd, I'll stick to dirty diesels, thanks. Well, even diesels are on the dip now, aren't they? It's petrol or electric.
Yeah,
there's not so many diesels.
You see, I still remember the adverts. I don't know when it was, back in the late 80s or 90s. The government, buy a diesel car. That's the fuel of the future. That's the way to go. Diesel cars. Yeah. And then it was all a big lie, wasn't it? Now they're telling us that diesel cars are dirty. You shouldn't be buying them. Well, bloody hell, most diesels these days are super. When they're running right, they are very clean now because of the way they've managed their emission systems on them. Look at BMW diesels, the tailpipes, you could lick them with your tongue, they're so clean. And yet they're telling you that they're bloody shouldn't be driving them anymore. So you listen to the government all those years ago when they were wrong. Who can trust the government anymore? You can't. They just lie to you all the time.
Well, I've just got one thing to say about diesel, because this is going to show my age as well, Alan. Citroen BX diesel. They were the days, weren't they? The old Citroen BX.
They were the ones with the what was the suspension? The fluid suspension.
Yeah. Was it
hydroelastic? Not hydroelastic, was it? It was something else.
What was it called? I can't think of the name now. Yeah, and they you could lower them and everything, couldn't you?
Yeah, because that was a car that could slipstream along for so many miles, 600 miles or something, and you could lower it right down.
Yeah,
you could lower the car right down for motorways. Ooh.
And was that the one they could drive it on 3 wheels because that suspension? If you had a blowout, I remember an advert. It was either the CX or the BX. And they drove it between 2 trucks and it had a blowout, but it kept going down the road because of this suspension. So you could raise it and it would actually drive on 3 wheels. Very clever.
Do you know what? That's getting me now.
Alan's just going to look it up.
You carry on talking. I'll do some research.
Alan's going to look up. Right. Michael Barnett, please don't buy an electric car. This is a total failure waiting to happen. Another one who agrees with you there, Alan. Neil Smith, back in 1990, I had a 1985 XR3i. I believe it was one of the first ones with ABS. I'm sure they had a weird system with belts running off the drive shafts to the ABS sensors, if my memory serves. So, hydro pneumatic suspension. There we are. That was the Citroen. BX, yeah. Wow. Sorry about that. We got distracted with Citroen BX. See, there's loads of cars we can talk about, isn't there? So that's interesting. Going back to this, so an 85 XR3i. So that would have been one of the last Mark IIIs, because the Mark IV came out in February '86.
Yeah, so, first one of ABS.
Yeah, very interesting. Cozzy Steve 1. Hi, you all good? Are you all good, Alan? Cozzy Steve 1
Hello.
wants to know.
Yeah, we're doing excellent. I'm not having no more drink or I'll be on the floor.
That's why I'm sticking with the soft drink, because I'm driving. I'm being sensible. I can't pronounce the name. I'm sorry, but good evening from Poland. Evening.
Hello. Hello over there in Poland.
That's so cool, isn't it? Again, to speak to people from all around the world. That's really good. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your comment. Good to see you. I don't know if they had Orions in Poland, did they? Probably not.
Don't know. I don't even know what cars they have in Poland.
No.
I don't know if them larders from like the Soviet bloc come over.
FSOs, I think they had in Poland, didn't they? Yeah.
Polonaise FSO, yeah.
Yeah. But talking about the Orion, going back to it, I keep swinging back to the Orion, but that is the theme. So the Mark I said it was launched in September 1983. That's if you was in the UK, but I believe Europe had it earlier. I think it was about May time they got it. So be interesting if anyone's watching from France or Belgium, somewhere like that, if you remember what type of Orions you had over there. I think France had a Mark II, I think it was called a Gear Executive, which was a pretty cool one, I think. And a Bolero, there was one called a Bolero, I'm sure that, Escort and Orion Bolero Special Edition. That had white wheel trims, I think.
The name rings a bell.
That was in France. Samuel's Oily Ori, hey to you. Matty England, mag mounts and gutter mounts for the CB aerials. Hey, now we're talking. Any ideas how to get anti-roll bar rusted nuts off? WD-40?
Yes, it's called a bloody angle grinder. Cut it off with a bloody angle. That's how you get them off. That's if you can fit it in there.
Yeah.
It's like some of them can be in a right awkward place and they're a right pain in the ass to get off. You need a bloody good pair of mole grips to grip it from behind and an air gun to try and get it off.
Air chisel, yeah.
Yeah, well, the worst comes to the worst. You've got to cut them off sometimes because they can be rusted on bad.
Yeah. Right, Stephen Law's back. Where would be the best place to sell my Ainsley manuals or Haynes manual? I think he's got predictive text or something, hasn't he? For my old cars like the XR3, XR2, Ford Orion, old Rovers. Well, there you go. Anyone's watching and you want any of those Haynes manuals, Steve's your man. He's got them. Eric. I love the Orion. Yeah, good. Box shapes, just like the Volvo, but I love my Mark II Mondeo 1.6 16 valve. Maybe I'd have a
Flipping Mark II.
chance to buy another in good shape. I remember the 1.6, the Mark II. I remember it's confusing. They had a Z-Tech engine, but then they called the car the Z-Tech, the model, didn't they? So they brought out this Mondeo Z-Tech, and it had Escort Cosworth style alloy wheels. They were a bit smaller than the Cosworth ones, but they were that same design. And they looked pretty cool back in about 99. They were a nice motor.
What I want to know, Eric, on your Mark II Mondeo, are the bumpers broken?
Eggshell bumpers. Yeah.
It used to be a laughing point. Every Mondeo Mark II we'd see would have a broken bumper. So please just answer that question.
Just big round bumper, weren't they?
They were
prone to damage. Yeah, paper bumpers. Pat Kelly, evening, Alan and Kevin. Hi, Pat. How you doing?
Hi, Pat.
That's a name I recognise from the live streams. Yeah, Pat's one of our regular viewers. Brilliant. Stiff Rock. My daily driver is a Mark III Escort 1.6 GL 1981.
Wow.
Woo.
That's a new name, Stiff Rock. I haven't heard Stiff Rock before.
You want to save that for some car shows? Take that to some car shows. That's a cool motor.
1981.
We had a lot of Fords in our family. Sierra, Scorpio, Escort, Mark II Mondeo. Maybe it'll come Mark IV Mondeo next. Too bad no one takes care of old cars like the Orion. Yeah, I agree with you there, Eric. That's a real shame, isn't it? And they just get forgotten about, which is why I'm talking about it tonight. Just reminding everyone about the Orion, because it is one of those cars you forget about, isn't it?
Yeah, they did exist.
I mean, Alan
really
invited me to come and do this live stream. We were going to do this just before Christmas, but unfortunately I wasn't very well, so we had to postpone it. And he said, think about a car you'd like to talk about. And we hadn't really decided on one, and nothing was jumping out at me. We'd mentioned Escorts and things, but I felt like I wanted to do something a bit different. And then the other evening, it just came to me. I thought, Ford Orion, let's do the Orion. So,
yeah, what comes into your head, just do it. Just go for it.
I don't think we're doing too bad on the comments. I think, what's the time now? It's now coming up towards 9. Steve Perry's telling us timestamp 8:30. So he sent that half an hour ago. So we're not doing too bad. We'll try and rattle through a few. Apologies if we haven't got to you yet. Stick with us. We'll try and get there. I remember Escort SI and GTI trim levels. Yes, both 1.8s, but GTI had more power. Yeah, they were the Mark 6 Escort, the last ones. So 97, 98. They were doing the GTI. That's quite a car if you got one now. I remember seeing, I think it was in the showroom at TC Harrison at Peterborough. They had an Amparo blue 5-door GTI with the side skirts and everything on it. That was a nice car. And I think did they have the white dials inside them on the dashboard? I think they did. Steve Perry, there is nowhere to mount a pair of CBA or CB, however you pronounce it, Oscars on modern cars. Yeah, he's talking about the spotlights.
No, not anymore, though, isn't it? It's all a thing of the past, isn't it?
Yeah, nowhere to mount it. That is a good point, because the front's just the front, isn't it?
No, because
no brackets, no bumpers.
Plastic bumpers, isn't there? You can't do nothing with them.
You'd have to be very creative, make something, cut it all out and everything.
You see how they creep in and take the fun out of everything with all their streamlinings.
Yeah. And pedestrian safety and things come into it as well now, don't they? You have all these impact crash things. Stephen Law, are you owned to Sierra Cosworth and 3-door Cosworth? If I knew then what I know now, we're gone. Nowhere. None of my cars. All I have is old manuals. Where would be a good place to sell them?
We can have a lot of them. This is about the 4th person now.
It's the same with Steve. It's the same Stephen. He's come back with us.
Yeah, I'll check out eBay and all the Facebook groups on these particular
or Gumtree, which is local to you. You can go on there, can't you, and sell some things. Mark C. Litter loved the large boot on the Orion and the joystick for the stereo. Not that I used it. No, I don't think you needed it. Was it just to do the balance of your speakers, wasn't it? Just to, you wanted to leave it in the middle, really, didn't you?
Talking of that, the Orion did have a particularly big boot.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Not as much that much leg room in the back seats, but they had a big boot.
Yeah. Good sized boot, bigger than the Escort, really, wasn't it? But yeah, Fords did have decent boots on them until he got up to the Mark 1 Focus. I remember having a Mark 6 Escort, trading it in for a Mark 1 Focus, and it's like, whoa, where's the boot gone? That was quite a shock, yeah. Steve Perry, a guy at work had an Orion with different garage plates back and front. We convinced him it was a cut and shut, LOL. Oh, yeah. Different garage plates. Yeah, it's just got a different garage on them. Yeah, very good. The only special edition car I've had is a Vauxhall Super Tourer ST200. I've no idea what that is, have you?
I've not heard of it, no.
Vauxhall Super Tourer. I thought the ST200 was a Mondeo. That was the Mark II Mondeo, wasn't it? The ST200. And then you had the ST220 on the Mark III. Curbside Classics, the 1600 Orion had the lattice wheels and leather interior. Yes, it did. And the same lattice wheels were on the Orion Equipe.
Well, there's a Vauxhall Super Tourer. It looks like
it's a Vectra. It's a Vectra. Sorry, Banis, we're just looking on another screen.
See, we didn't even know what Super Tourer.
Didn't even know. And I call myself a Vauxhall fan. That's bad, isn't it?
Oh, that's a bloody video. I thought it was a picture.
Right.
It's a Vectra.
It's a Vectra.
It's
Mark 1 Vectra. Series 1 Vectra. My Orion 1.6i Gear 92J Reg had a rear wash wipe too, yes, which you didn't often see on saloon cars. That's very true. Very good point. My dad had the Escort Equipe 1994 L Reg. That had a rear wash wipe. That was one of the features on that. But yeah, the Gear had the rear wash wipe.
Do you know something? I don't think, this is my own personal thoughts. I think they should have left the wash wipe off the saloon cars.
Yeah, it looked a bit odd. It was practical, though. I must admit, it was practical.
Practicality and looks are two different things.
Because I remember my dad had this Escort with this rear wash wipe, and I used to borrow it occasionally. And then he changed it for a Mondeo saloon, and I was tugging away on the old wiper stick trying to get the rear wash wipe to work, and it didn't have one, of course. Didn't have one. Mark C. Litter could fit a couple of passengers in the boot as well. Yeah, that's what you were saying about the Orion boot. Decent size, wasn't it? Hi, guys. Greetings from Croatia. Evening. Thanks for joining us. We had a Mark 1 Mondeo Gear 2-litre petrol, 136 PS back in 1992. Had airbags and all the trim you could dream. Loved the space it had. Oh, that's a bit grisly, though. You could use it as a mortician car. I remember them saying that when I worked at a Ford dealer, actually. The Mondeo estate, I won't name the funeral directors, but there was a well-known nationwide funeral director that used to order these Mondeo Mark 1, Mark 2 estates, because if you folded the seats down in the back, you could actually fit a coffin in the back. So it's a bit of a grisly, fact there.
I wasn't really that keen on the Mark 1 and Mark 2 Mondeos, but in the estate, particularly the Mark 1 Mondeo, in the estate version, it looked sleek. It looked a nice car. So I did like them.
The styling was actually quite American. There was a big American Ford at the time. I can't remember the model, but that was very similar looking in the estate. I can't remember the name of it, but it had a little oval grille and a Ford badge in the front. Very similar looking American car. Anybody remember that one? What was it called? It's in the 1990s. Here we go. We've opened a can of worms now, Alan. Steve Perry. Alan, have you watched the video in the email I sent?
Not yet, Steve. Not yet.
Not yet.
Give me time. I'm always a bit behind. Got to catch up. I will get around. I've still got the email. I've still got to go through it.
Okay. I can't think. I'll have to think of this Ford. It was a big car. Stephen Law, cars for the radio we use are sat on top of the radio. So when we got nicked, the cold was already on top of the... I think he's finished typing there. MW, radio code normally scribbled on side or back of radio. Was it? Oh, there we are then.
Radio code normally scribbled on the side.
So if you took the radio out, the code was on the side, was it?
Well, a lot of people done that, so they knew where the code was.
Ah, that kind of defied the point, really, doesn't it? It's a bit like having your PIN number written on the back of your bank card, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's like nobody cares anymore. Who nicks the radios anymore?
Steve Perry, Ford radio codes were on a sticker in the glove box. Yes, they were brand new. If you had them, they were little. I remember the clear stickers, but my Escort sadly did not have it because it was secondhand. John Ladd, yeah, my old mate is a Ford nut. So this Orion he's telling us about, he bought the Orion back in 2001. I think he did MOT it a few times, but not really used it. Had a lot of folk asking to buy it, but he won't sell it. Okay, fair enough. Right, we're back onto the gaming platforms. I had the Atari 65E and the Atari ST.
Wasn't the Atari where they had a game where you had all these, like, I don't know, lines coming down from the screen, and you had to shoot the lines to stop them hitting the ground?
Oh, I can't remember what that was called.
I can't remember what the game was called either.
Matty England, yeah, I had an Atari ST 520 FM. Well, I'm learning something new, because if you said to me I had an ST, I'd think you were talking about a Focus or a Fiesta or something.
Some of these gaming machines were a big deal back then.
Yeah, they were. Oh,
people miss them now.
Sega Mega Drive, that's another one, wasn't it? And all those sort of things. Louis James, EVs are already the new Betamax. Soon as tax reliefs are lifted, they'll be dead and buried. More fool anyone who gave their money for one. Electric vehicles he's talking about. So,
well,
the new Betamax, that's interesting. Will the technology work or die out? So, are you suggesting we're waiting for VHS?
I don't
We've
think
not come up with it yet.
It's not so much the technology of electric cars. It's the political side that are pushing it. That's what the problem is.
I think there is some pressure, isn't there, from the government for all the manufacturers to go that way.
They're trying to
rush it out.
Get rid of CO2, which feeds the trees, and trying to tell us CO2 is bad.
But what makes me chuckle as well about the new electric cars, all these modern cars now, they've got screens like this in them, haven't they? Massive screens. So surely if you've got a screen on in your car all the time, that's going to drain the battery more than if you didn't have a screen.
Well, there's a lot of things to think about, isn't there? It's like air conditioning, heating, stuff like that. It's all going to run off battery power, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the frustrating thing. Alan was joking about turning the cogs round on the mileage to wind your mileage back. But even the Speedos now, they're not actual clocks with a needle anymore. They're a digital version of it, aren't they? So it's another screen that the battery's having to power. But also, regardless of whether you buy an electric or a petrol car or whatever these days, all of these screens and stuff, they're nice, but I think they're going to be expensive down the line if they go wrong, because you're going to have to replace the whole unit or the whole dashboard. So again, buying something 10 years old or older, it's a bit of a worry, isn't it, going forward?
Everything these days is just computer systems, modules.
Yeah. I mean, I love cars, but all of my cars have been quite basic, really, because it's a simple thing to say, but it's less to go wrong, you know.
Give me a goddamn carburetor and a set of points and condenser.
Yes, you can do all that yourself. No need to worry about plugging it into something, is there?
You know all these electronic cars, they can literally take control of your car while you're driving it. Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, they're going towards driverless cars now anyway, aren't they, as well? That's the other thing. That's another subject, driverless cars. Alan, you can do one on that next week. Yeah,
that's all very well and good till it goes wrong. And it will go wrong.
Oh, look, Cousin 72's come up with a gem, Citroen Xantia. That replaced the BX, didn't it? That was a good one.
I remember the Xantia.
Yeah, I like the Xantia. 94 was that? 93, 94? That was a nice car. Neil Smith, hydrostatic. Yeah, we looked up that, didn't we? And hydromatic, no jack required, says Steve Perry. Yeah, no jack. You could change your wheel without needing a jack. It was very good. Mark Chadwick, Citroen GS with a blowout on the edge of a cliff. Good advert. It's a GS. Thanks for that, Mark. Yes, great one.
But Citroen have always been quirky, haven't they?
Yeah,
They've always sort of like had something a little bit different from the rest.
Yeah. Mark Hart, evening Alan and Kevin. The Citroen suspension is hydro pneumatic, isn't it?
Yep.
I think the Citroen Xantia still holds the record for the Moose test. What's the Moose test?
Moose. I don't know.
No. Neil Smith. Oh, sorry, it was an 86 C Reg. That makes sense now. So yeah, XR3i, it would have been one of the first Mark IVs on a C with the ABS. Thanks for that. Brilliant. Right, I'll let you read this one, Alan, because this is one for you.
Has White, hello. I'm a big fan of what you do. I don't do much. I have a Mark V Mondeo and I need a new bush on rear left and sounds like the CV joints need looking at. Could you fix them? Watch. Well, the trouble is when you say rear left, if it sounds like a as you push the suspension up and down, yes, it is a bush, but I don't think you can get the bushes separate. You've got to buy the whole arm, as far as I believe.
I think so.
And they're bloody expensive. They're like £300-400 for an arm. So yes, they're easy enough to fit. I've done enough of them, but yeah, it's only a stupid little bush. But if you can get a bush, then you can press the bush out and put a new bush in. But I have looked high and low and I cannot find a bush to buy.
I had the same problem when I owned my Mark I Focus. My Escort before that needed a new bush, and it was something like 60p for the bush. But then when the Focus needed it, I had to have the whole new arm. So that was quite a shock when I got the bill for that. Yeah.
And as far as the CV joints go, if it's the outer CV joints, your best bet there, if you don't want to shell out a ton of money, because when you buy a drive shaft from Ford, you either buy the inner section or the outer section, and they're both as cheap as each other, should I say. They're both about £350 plus VAT. So the best bet you can get is go on eBay and buy a second-hand drive shaft, the outer joint or whatever one's gone, and just put a second-hand one on it. Because if it's the inner joint, then fine, I can get the bearings, but the outer joint, I can't do nothing about it. If the outer joint's worn out, you're stuffed. Either buy a new one from Ford and just slog it out and pay the money and put it on, or get a second-hand one for maybe £100 off eBay, which would probably be pretty good, and put that on. That's what I'd go to eBay and get a second-hand one.
Or go to a salvage yard. There's a lot of salvage yards that sell spares from cars, aren't they? And at least you probably get a bit of a warranty or something with them as well.
I think everyone's made most salvage yards. I remember the days when you had the yellow page. You remember the yellow pages? You had to look through them to find out who you wanted to phone.
And then you rang someone from a landline. For the younger viewers, you had a landline and a phone book with numbers in it.
Yeah. Now it's all on eBay. All the salvage yards, nearly all of them, they're all on eBay. Whatever they're selling, it's on eBay, no doubt. So that's where you want to go and get what you want, cheaper than what you'd buy from the dealership.
That's why I'd love a Capri.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, I think we're both.
We'd love a Capri. I want a Mark I Capri.
You want a Mark I? Any particular model?
GT? I don't know.
I'd like a Mark III 3-litre S with the Essex V6 in it in Strato Silver. That would be nice. Or a laser. I like the laser. 1.6 or 2-litre laser.
That's not a very high up model.
It wasn't, but I'd like the styling because it's got those 4-spoke AVO style wheels on it, which are really nice. And the tape decal down the side. I quite like the look of the laser. Color-coded grille and mirrors by that time as well. Steve Perry, nut splitters are good for rounded off rusted nuts. Do you agree with that?
Do you know what? You're going back. Bloody hell, Steve, you and half know your stuff, didn't you? I remember a nut splitter. I'm not talking dirty here, but it's like, yes, it's like a, how can I put it? It's like a little tool you fit over the nut. and it's got like a sharp blade bit in it.
Oh yeah.
And you screw it in onto the nut.
And it prizes it.
Yeah, it splits, it cuts through the nut as you screw it in.
Wow.
It literally, like a chisel, it will cut through the nut and split it.
Ooh.
I don't have one. I've never had one, but a bloke I used to work with had one, and it did do the job. It was very good.
Right, we'll move on. Thanks for your comments so far. Simon Beasley, my dad had a Sea-Reg Orion gear, metallic grey with a red stripe in the black bumper. Oh, nice. Sea-Reg. What was that? Mercury grey, perhaps? That's nice. Hara Radanovic. Hello, Alan. I hope you're doing well. That's for you.
Yes, I'm as drunk as a skunk. Thank you very much.
It's too quickly. Drank it too quickly. Knocked the whiskey and then that beer was too quick. Didn't pace yourself, Alan,
No,
did you?
I'm all right.
He's all right. He's all right.
Oh, I'm going to have another one.
He's going to have another one.
Kevin unfortunately can't drink because he's driving.
I'm driving. So, yeah. So that's why he's left me in control of this panel. Stephen Law didn't know Ford Mondeo, the 2-litre diesel, has a 6-speed gearbox. I think, did that depend, Alan?
What's that?
Stephen didn't know the Ford Mondeo 2-litre diesel has a 6-speed gearbox.
The
modern
Mark
ones
5
do. Yeah, the modern ones do. The previous ones, I think the Mark III, I think you had to have the 155 PS diesel to get the 6-speed gearbox. I think if you had the 130 PS, it was just a 5-speed, if my memory serves me correctly. So it was a while ago.
There's 6-speed is standard on all the Mark 5s as far
Is
as I know.
now, yeah. Right, it was a good one. This is a good question. I like this one. So Hara's come back to us with, I have a question for a Mondeo Mark III. Shall I count it as the 2nd generation or the 3rd?
Third.
The people in the Balkans say it's 3rd generation, but I think it's not. Well, the Mark III, we call it the Mark III. The Mark I and the Mark II were the same platform. The Mark II was really kind of just a facelift, wasn't it, of the Mark I? They rounded it off.
Yeah.
So
But they called it a
Mark II and a Mark III. So I can understand why people say that it's the 2nd generation, because really it's mechanically it was the same and just a facelift. But yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a bit like the Escort Mark III and Mark IV. Do you really call the Escort Mark IV a Mark IV? Because it was a facelift of the Mark III, but I think it was sufficiently different to merit a new number. Tricky one, isn't it?
I think if you want to be totally politically correct, then you'd say the Mark III is the Mark II. But everyone just calls the Mark I and Mark II as separate.
It's easier to distinguish between them. I mean, Ford as well was confusing with this. Ford Motor Company, I know for a fact, they have different designations to the public. So the famous one is Ford never officially made a Ford Cortina Mark V. Everyone calls it the Mark V, but to them it was still the Mark IV. It was just a facelift. Likewise, the Ford Transit. When you get to the 3rd generation of the Transit with the slopey front, I and everyone I know calls that a Transit Mark III, but Ford called it a Mark II because they saw the Mark II Transit as being just a facelift, just a reworking of the original. So it does get a bit blurry, does get a bit confusing, but hope have we answered that? Not really, have we? Mark III. It is, well, Alan's answered it. It's technically the 2nd generation. Yes, I can see what you're saying. So
yeah,
I think you're right, Hara. So thanks for your question. I hope that's
one of those things. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Everyone calls the Mark I, the Mark II, which was the facelift. They just called it the Mark II. So
the worst thing is when you try to buy bits from it, and the person on the other end of the phone is thinking one thing and you're thinking the other. So they'll say to you, "What Mondeo have you got?" And you'll say Mark III, and they're probably counting it as a Mark II and giving you the bits for a Mark IV by mistake. It gets messy. Eric, good one with a bumper. No, they were in mint condition until a Peugeot driver crashed into my rear bumper And I had a Chinese plastic rear bumper, black matte. I was sad and angry that day. Ooh. Knackered the bumper.
Yeah, it always remembers me the day when I was in my Marina and I reversed into a brand new Montego.
Ooh,
And a little old woman gets out. I said in my video, the very words she said to me was, "You stay here. You wait till my husband gets back. My car will never be the same again."
No.
It was a plastic bumper.
Yeah.
I even offered to sort of like buy her a bumper and fit it for her and paint it, but no, I'm going for the insurance.
Oh dear. Hara Ridanovic, and why is the Mondeo first generation facelift codenamed as the Mark II? I think we just covered that. It's just to differentiate it, really, isn't it? You could call it the 1A, I suppose, because it was a facelift, but I think it was sufficiently different to merit being called a Mark II. It gets very tricky between these mark numbers, doesn't it? Hara, yes, there you go. Eric's answering for you. Yes, good question. Maybe back in the day the cars weren't called the facelift name. Who knows? I think who knows sums it up really, doesn't it? Ricardo, my first car was a Ford Orion EFI 1.6 gear in black, H-Reg. Beautiful car. Ooh.
1991.
So H-Reg, that could have been one of the last Mark IIs or one of the first Mark IIIs, couldn't it? Because I think it was October 1990 that they launched the they launched the Mark III. I remember. I'm going to tell a little story now. Go off on a little tangent. So Escort Mark V / Orion Mark III, they were launched in October 1990. Saw them at the motor show, Birmingham NEC, but also local dealer here. At the time it was Hunt's Motors, now part of TC Harrison, still there. They had a special launch evening. And I remember going along to that with my dad, and we had a look, and they had an Escort and Orion in the showroom, one of each. One was red, one was blue. Can't remember which way round it was, but I remember that. Go in and get a glass of orange juice or bubbly. And always remember there was a chap talking to Carol, actually. Carol Dennis. Hi, Carol. She was one of the sales team at Hunt's Motors. And she was taking an order from a gentleman. He was ordering a brand new Mark V Escort in magenta. I always remember him saying that. I'll have magenta, please. Yeah, the old launch evening. So, yeah, very good. Liam Woodcock. Oh, do Parts Plus do parts for all cars and models? I think Parts Plus, are they just Ford parts?
They actually
do everything?
They actually do. They do parts for all makes and models. Yeah, they do.
There you go. But Elaine won't be delivering them. Elaine's retired, hasn't she?
Yeah.
Elaine, the parts driver from Parts Plus.
Yeah, well, I don't know who the new guy is. There's a little Indian guy. He's got a turban on and everything. I don't know what his name is, but he comes around quite a bit. But yeah, they do. When the guy from the Ford comes around to stock the Ford parts, if there's any parts we need for anything that's not specifically not Ford, they can supply it. It's Omnicraft. I'm sure it's Omnicraft.
Yeah.
But the Ford supply parts for all these other makes of cars. You can get them.
Cool. Taurus. One word. What we are? Ford Taurus. Is that the American car?
Version.
That's the American one we're talking about. Thanks for that. Brilliant. We got there in the end. Yes, Ford Taurus. Curbside Classics. Didn't Tickford do the interiors in the 1600Es? Yes, I think I mentioned that. So came out of the factory, went over to Tickford's, and they did all the interiors, kitted them all out with the leather and the wood, and can't even remember that. I think they had the stereos with the graphic equalizers we were talking about, and some extra lights in the footwells and reading lights, and the steering wheel from the Scorpio that I was talking about. So yeah, Tickford kitted them all out basically. Michael Barnett, heads up for anyone buying a car. Take a decent OBD scanner to check what's on the ECU for mileage, and don't rely on the dash. 35,000 miles has been wiped off mine. Whoa. That's fierce, isn't it? So that's his tip. Hi again, Vivian. Vivian Hughes. Mondeo 2 Imac, light mauve metallic, parked last week, Walton on the Naze High Street, outside owner's shop. It just sailed through MOT, no advisories. Talking to owner, he's open to offer. I was tempted. Ooh. Oh, immaculate. I get it now. Mondeo Mark 2. Immaculate. Sorry, Vivian. Light mauve metallic. That'll be cuirass, wasn't it? That was the colour. Cuirass. My dad's was cuirass, which is a silvery mauve. Yeah. My dad had a GLX. I wonder what the mileage was on that then, Vivian. That's good. Open to offers. What would you offer for something like that now, eh?
Bloody hell, who knows?
Wonder what spec it
Someone's
was.
prepared to pay for it.
Right, here's another answer about this Vauxhall. So it was Super Touring Vectra generation was cheekily named ST200. That is cheeky. A car that aimed for the jugular of the Ford Mondeo of the same name and was so called due to its limited production run and 200 brake horsepower. Wow. Didn't even know about this Super Touring Vectra.
Well, it used to be Vectras and Mondeos. They were kind of
Yes.
like in competition quite a bit together.
A bit like Sierra Cavalier kind of thing, yeah.
Popular cars at the time.
They were. Hara's back. So our Mondeo had a problem in a cold start. When you turn the wheel lock to lock, you hear the grinding sound of steering wheel. When it's cold start. Would that be something to do with the power steering fluid?
I know a lot of these, especially on the Mark IVs, they changed the power steering fluid to this green hydraulic fluid. And there was a little filter in the reservoir that used to get blocked. And you get a lot of noises coming from your power steering. And it was all because of a blocked filter.
Oh.
You would take the filter out and fling it in the bin, and then it was fine.
So we didn't know what was the problem, and the Mark III is produced in the USA. And he said when he sold it to the customer, American series. Okay. Right. Who we got next? How you doing, Alan? You all right?
Steve, I'm looking for a timestamp.
Yeah. That was sent at 9:04. So we're only 20 minutes behind at the moment. We're doing all right. A friend worked for an undertaker. Stupid o'clock in the morning is pulled over by the police. Normal questions. Is this your car, sir? And what do you have in the back? Answers were no and a dead body, officer. I bet that took a bit of explaining, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, Mick Ramo reckons Space Invaders. Is that the one you were talking about with the lines down the screen?
No. Space Invaders were little like heads of aliens, loads of them. That they would come down like that. But the lines I was on about, they would come down at all different angles.
Ah,
and
okay.
you'd have a little gun turret at the bottom, and you'd have to go along the baseline and shoot up and stop all the lines.
I think I vaguely remember it.
I can't remember the name.
I don't know what it was called. Right, and Steve's got the punchline to this Mondeo story. We are a comedian, are we, sir? No, officer, an undertaker. Michael Johnson. Hi, Michael. My old neighbours had a light blue A-Reg Orion Gear. That was one of the first then, that was, wasn't it? It only got used for special occasions and for his wife. It lived in the garage all year. He used his Fiesta to go to work. All right. So special occasion car.
Yeah, that was a bloody 1983.
Light blue, that was probably Paris blue, the same as Danny Bennett's one, I imagine. Hara's back. Is Citroen C3 HDI better or VTI, and are they expensive to repair?
That's I do not know.
That's an Alan doesn't know answer, that one.
No, because...
Well, I guess one's petrol and one's diesel for a start, aren't they? So it's a bit of a difficult comparison.
Well, HDI is diesel. VTI is the petrol one.
Yeah. So it's difficult to compare them, isn't it? But in terms of repairing, about the same, do you reckon?
Well, they're French. The problem is with all these French cars, the bodyworks are pretty good. They're made of pretty good metal. Their engines, they're cheap. They're mass manufactured cheap engines. That's why Ford use Peugeot in their Ford cars because they're cheaper to buy the Peugeot engines and fit them in the cars rather than make their own engines. So, but on the flip side, because they've made so many of them, they've got them to a pretty good standard. So I don't know. I'm not knocking the Peugeot engines too much because over the years, I mean, not the early ones, but the ones in the modern cars of today, they're not bad at all, really. Even the petrol versions, they'll still last a good old life if you look after them. And it's like I always said, as long as you look after your car's engine and give it the oil changes and services at the right intervals, it will look after you. So, yeah.
Okay. So it's, a tricky one, really.
Well, I don't know how you compare a petrol and diesel.
That's the tricky bit, isn't it? Flea 72, I've still got a Commodore C64C facelift with tape deck and lots of games in the attic. Load times were a right pain. Kids today would laugh. Yeah, you had to wait about 5 minutes, didn't you, to load your game up? Well, here's a good question. I'm going to answer this one. Hara Ridanovic, why they stopped producing Vauxhall Insignia and Opel? I don't actually know the official answer, but I think it's because the Insignia was still an outgoing General Motors product, and of course Stellantis now own Vauxhall, PSA, Peugeot, Citroën, etc. So they're bringing in a lot of the Vauxhalls now are on Peugeot platforms. So I think really they've discontinued the Insignia as well for the same reason Ford have discontinued the Mondeo, because it wasn't the volume seller. But the dealership I work at the moment, we got a lovely one of the very last Insignias on a 72 plate silver one. That's a lovely car. I was looking at that today. That's for sale, and it's 28,995 if anyone's interested in buying that. Lovely car.
I didn't even know that they're stopping the Insignias.
Yeah, they don't make the Insignia now. We can't order anymore. They've stopped making that, so that's finished, unfortunately. Oh, John lad, my mate. Oh, this John, you're something like a Ford mecca, aren't you? You got all these Fords coming together. My mate also has Capri 2.8i Special, Sierra XR 4x4, 2.9i Ford KA Sports. Oh, I remember that. Ford KA Sport, that's Sport KA, yeah. Fiesta ST 150, Focus ST 225 times 2. He has them scattered all over the street. Blimey, that must be a big street. Hara's back. So in Bosnia, they love Volkswagen, Skoda, Audi, Citroen, Peugeot, and Mercedes. Yes. Oh, and here's a question. Look, and is the workshop in London or somewhere else in the UK? That's your workshop, Alan.
No, it's in Alconbury, Cambridgeshire.
Mark Hart. Oh, Moose Test. Wikipedia. The evasive manoeuvre is performed to determine how well a certain vehicle evades a suddenly appearing obstacle. So it's like the old,
that's what it is.
Right. Oh, if you live around here, where Alan's talking about, near Alconbury, it's called the Muntjac test, because there's loads of Muntjac deer everywhere. And a friend of mine actually was driving to work one day and hit 2 of them, and he said he saw them go past his driver's window as they ran in the side of his car.
Well, if I had £1 for every taxi driver that's hit a Muntjac in a red Mark 5 Mondeo, I'd be a rich man today.
So Hara's back. Mark 3 Mondeos everywhere in Bosnia. Okay. Moose Test, the Citroen Xantia Activa V6 has held the record since 1999. Whoa. So, right. Better get a Citroen Xantia then if we want to avoid a Muntjac by the sounds of it.
I suppose they were pretty good, actually.
What about the pheasant test? I hit a pheasant. That wasn't good. We got anything that will survive that? Right. Flea 72. My same ex-neighbour also has an Escort RS 1600i, very similar to the RS Turbo. My favourite Mark III Ford Escort, that is, RS 1600i. Fantastic car. When the driver comes onto the track, they quickly swerve into the oncoming lane to avoid the object and then immediately swerves back to avoid oncoming traffic. Moose test. Right, we're getting plenty of moose test definitions. We get it now. Thank you. Steve Perry, I remember the days of salvage yards where you climbed the stacks to unbolt a part. Craig Fevier, are you still watching? Do you remember when you and I went with my dad to Burton's Disposals at Bythorn to get some parts for my dad's Austin Princess? We had to get a hydroelastic suspension unit because my dad's one had gone and all the yellow gunge had come out of it. And we had to go to this scrapyard and we were climbing all over the cars. We found a Princess. Dad had some basic tools with him, took the unit off himself, took it to the counter and paid for it. But I remember, the cars were stacked high. You could climb all over them.
There was one I went to in Great Yarmouth, just as you go into Great Yarmouth. This was years ago, but they were like 4, 5, 6 cars on top of each other.
Yeah,
and it was a small yard, but that's how they had to do it to keep so many cars in there.
Yeah,
and I had to go in there and get some bits, but it was fun. It was you were allowed to climb up there and get what you wanted. It was great,
brilliant. Yeah, I miss those days.
Yeah, now you have to wear a freaking high vis and all that crap.
Oh,
You're not even allowed in the yards anymore, are you?
No, not allowed in now. It takes the fun out of it, but yeah. Oh dear. Oh, what's happened here? I've
That's
done
all right.
something
We're
wrong
going
there.
next
I'm
one
clicking
down.
on the wrong one. Bloody hell, are you two old queens still going? And what time was that then, Jerry? 12 minutes past 9. We're not that far. Yeah, we're still going. We're doing all right.
It's been 2.5 bloody hours.
What do you mean, are we still going? Do you mean to say that you had the nerve to go off and do something else and you've come back? You haven't stuck with us, hey? Dear, oh dear. Right, I've kind of apologies if I've missed anyone here. No, I haven't. I've not missed a comment, so we're doing all right. Liam Woodcock, Alan, you are the best mechanic. I watch all videos and I learn a lot about Mark V Mondeos.
Well, thank you, but I've just learned the art of bullshitting.
Do what I do. If you don't know the answer, just sound convincing. Make something up.
Yeah. You make it up in the videos that never go to plan anyway. What you see is the finished product. You don't see all the bullshittery that goes on behind when things don't go right. You just see the polished part of the video.
Steve Perry, recommended viewing is Rich Rebuild's Tesla battery fire due to incorrect charging. The cells were bouncing off of the fire engine. Blimey, that sounds a bit vicious.
From what one of the videos I saw, I don't know if all these batteries are the same, but one of these electric car batteries, although it's a great big thing, they're made up of thousands of what's like shotgun shells batteries. And if they were to go off, there's nothing you can do about it but sort of like run, hide, or put a screen up or something, because they'll be firing off and all over the place. You can't really put them out. What can you do if you get an electrical fire on a like an electric car? You can't spray water on it.
No, you need CO2, don't you?
It's like you're screwed, aren't you? It's just gonna go up
unless you carry a CO2 fire extinguisher with you, and remember not to hold on to the siphon because your hand will freeze to it. It's a lot to remember in an emergency, isn't it? But something we haven't touched on, we're talking about electric cars. What about hydrogen fuel cell cars? That's another thing, isn't it? They're still sort of toying with.
Well, I think that's a better idea, but it's like they don't want to push that, do they?
No, they don't seem to be as...
anything related to fossil fuels, they don't want to know.
No. But at least for those, they just kick out water, don't they? That's the only emission from the hydrogen ones. So there's nothing harmful. Steve Perry, as per the email. So he must have sent you that on an email, Alan.
Yeah, I've got to check it out. I've got to go through
I wish Ford would bring the Mondeo 6, which is made and sold in China. It looks great, and I'm quite sure it would sell good in Europe. Have you seen this Mark 6 Mondeo?
I've not seen it.
Do you want to Google it and have a look while I'm doing this? And Steve Perry's back. He says, I remember driving an early sloping front transit. Bloody awful. At a corner, it would lean over but go straight on. Yeah, they had narrow wheels, the early ones, 1986, didn't they? But that's my favourite. They were brilliant. My dad used to have one of those at the time for his job. I remember doing, it was a diesel as well, it was noisy, but I remember the middle seat, you just had a little lap belt. You didn't have the inertial reel one on those. So Eric, love your channel. That's to you, Alan. I have over 8 years, I think, since I started following you. I will still follow you and keep the videos coming. Have a great time, guys. Thanks, Eric.
Oh, well, thank you. That looks pretty sleek, I must say, for Chinese.
We just Googled this Chinese Mondeo. That is vicious. Very nice, isn't it?
That's
It's like a big Focus, isn't it?
I'll tell you what I'll do.
It looks like a big Focus.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a sneak preview. You can Google it yourself anyway. But
Alan's just gonna.
Wrong way
He's
round.
trying to do a shot of it.
I've got my phone leading the way as well, but
It's coming.
yeah,
So this is the Mondeo.
it looks something like that.
Yeah, not bad, is it?
The question is, because it's Chinese made, how long would it last?
Oh,
Because you know what comes out of China ain't too great, and we shouldn't encourage the CCP.
Kay Jones.
Hi Kay, just came to check how you doing. I'm doing fine. We're 2.5 hours in, or more than that now.
Oh.
It's a long one tonight.
Steve Perry, that's a true story about The Undertaker. I didn't doubt it, Steve. Yeah, good one. Hara's back. We have an Astra J sedan automatic. We had 2 cars, Mondeo and Astra. After we sold a Ford, we had one and nearly bought the Insignia Turbo Diesel Automatic 2018. Very good. And that was in 2020 for the Insignia. If you could only have one car, what would it be? The question to both of you. GP SOMG. Are you talking a current car, like brand new, or are you talking the classic car? Are you talking about absolutely anything?
I think he probably means any car.
Any car at all.
Oh,
If you could only have one car, what would it be? So, well, let's read this carefully. If you could only have one car, so it's got to be something you've got to use every day as well as
1970 Dodge Charger.
Alan's still going for that. I can still see Alan in the new Dodge Charger. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
No, but I
Driving up
want
to
the
Steve's.
1970
He
Dodge
wants the
Charger.
1970. And if I could only have one car, what would it be? Oh. Well, I do like Capris. I would like a Capri still that we mentioned earlier. 3 litre S, really. That would be good. I'd still love a Knight Rider replica. Anyone who saw our Yaxley car show video, there was a Knight Rider car there that I was nuts about. I'd love one of those. That would be great. A Knight Rider, 3rd generation Pontiac Trans Am. Not very practical for every day though. And this will probably surprise you. If I had to buy a new car now, brand new one, I'd probably buy a Peugeot 208 GT in the yellow because I think they look really cool. So that would be nice, just an everyday car to get me from A to B. Grunty Fen Scrapyard. Okay, there's Dennis of Grunty Fen work there, does he? Matty England here in Bristol, always in Bristol. Hello. They bought up the area where all the old scrapyards were and built a cinema complex. Oh, there used to be stacked 5 cars high there too. Yeah.
Good fun climbing up them stacks of cars.
Do you watch Scotty Kilmer, Alan? Asks Lewis James. Who's Scotty Kilmer?
Scotty Kilmer is an American guy who talks about cars.
Oh, okay.
He's got a lot of knowledge of cars. He's got a fantastic, massive following. He's a big name in America. Yes, I do watch him occasionally, but yeah, I know exactly who you mean. But yeah, he is good. He knows a lot. He's got a very good way of presenting himself.
Beano #1 superhero. Alan, you're a freaking master with the Mark IV Mondeo, mate. There you go.
Master with the Mark.
Yoda. He's Yoda of Mondeo, really, isn't he? Mondeo
We've recently had a Mark IV Mondeo that managed to, with the aid of the driver, take off, leap a fence and end up in a garden centre. It's now waiting for the insurance company to take it away to the scrapyard.
Brian Coulson says, "Hi, Alan. Your videos have helped." That's good to know, isn't it? So your videos have helped, Brian.
Yeah, I have actually put some videos out there which have been useful. When you get around all the nonsense, I have made some. I know. Yes, thank you very much.
But we do enjoy the nonsense, though. The nonsense is good. Matty England, the scrapyards always had some insanely vicious dogs locked in a car. Yeah, they did. The old security dogs. Matty England says camper van. We're probably a little bit off the thread. Probably something we said. Oh, it's a good question. Are there many 87 Escort estates left on the road? 5 doors, says Frey Bentos 666. I will have to look on. If you go on a website, how many left, it will tell you how many of these cars are left. But sometimes it's a bit tricky to decipher. But I bet there's not many 87s. That'll be a Mark IV. Brian Coulson, me with my Mark IV Mondeo. That's who said that you've helped. Right, here's an interesting one. So Flea72 says, my lottery win purchase would be a Brooklands Capri. I think some of them had a turbo. I'm not sure if the Brooklands had a turbo, because that was the 2.8i. That was the last one, the 280 you're talking about, aren't you? The Capri 280 and the Brooklands Green. But there was a Capri Turbo in Germany.
There wasn't there were a Brooklands one, the one at Peterborough?
Yes.
TC
We saw one at the TC Harrison show, the 280 Brooklands. Yeah, the last Capri.
I was looking around that one.
Interesting fact about the Capri 280 Brooklands, only 8 of them were registered on an F registration plate, because most of them were D or E. And F, of course, was 88, and they stopped building the Capri in December 86. But there were 8 registered on an F plate, and I saw one once at a car show at Peterborough Embankment. So a little bit of trivia for you there. That China Mondeo looks a wee bit Mustang-y to me.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
It looks very, very modern.
Steve Perry's back. My Mark V Titanium X Mondeo is so good. I have that only one car. So he's got a Mark V Titanium X. Nice spec. Alan is to the point when selecting a car. Kevin is producing the garage. Yeah, nice one. One car means only one car. Yeah, sorry about that. I can't. I like too many. Do you know what? If I won the lottery, I'd probably buy 20 cars. But I'll tell you what. If I can only have one car, I'll make this easy. I'll stick with the one I've got because I'm perfectly happy with that. I've got a Vauxhall Corsa, and that's fine. It does what I need it to. Goes when I want it to, and it stops when I want it to. That's all you need, really, isn't it? So
all I need is that big V8 throbbing Dodge Charger engine going up and down the Miracle Mile, the Great Yarmouth.
The trouble is with me. He always talks about this magic mile. Yeah, I'm gonna have to see this one day. I need to get something to cruise up and down.
It's the seafront. It's basically the seafront. It's like a Great Yarmouth. There's a mile-long strip. And what you used to do in the 80s and 90s, if you had a nice car, if it was tuned or done up in some way or other,
that's what you did.
You'd go down there at the weekends and you go up and down the mile, backwards and forwards.
Arm leaning. Yeah.
And you'd show your car off.
Nice.
Great Yarmouth was a place to be once upon a time. A bit like Blackpool, I guess, years ago.
So, yeah, sorry, GP, SOMG, sorry for going off, but I just like so many cars. It's very difficult to choose one for me. Very difficult. Being a #1 superhero, oh dear, it wasn't mine, Alan. Not sure what is related that to. Quite a few years ago, there was a 69 Dodge Charger on eBay. It was up for 29,000 at the time. It was a General Lee replica.
Mm.
We saw one of those, didn't we, at Stamford Car Show? Yeah.
I don't think I'd actually want.
Oh, someone's finally twigged. Well done, Steve. Alan, Monica looks different tonight with a beard and no hair. I wondered how long it'd take you to notice. Hi to the real Monica, by the way. I'm sure you're sitting watching this, but hello.
No, she went to the gym tonight. She's got more important things to do.
No, exactly. I was being a bit sarcastic. Better things to do than watch me talk about Ford Orions. Yeah. GPSOMG, F-Reg, August the 1st, 1988 to July the 31st, 1989. Yes. So did I say the wrong thing for F-Reg? Probably. We're getting a bit weary now, aren't we, Alan? We're flagging a bit.
Well, normally when you get into sort of like over the 2 hour mark, you kind of like.
Well, I think we're getting towards the end of the comments, I'm hoping. So only 39 Ford Sierras left. Ooh, is that what it says on the website? That's
Bloody hell.
vicious. Brian Coulson, I. Frey Bentos 666 E557XMJ 1987 Escort 1.6 auto 3-speed. Sold it during lockdown. Oh, and want to buy it back. Lost contact details of who I sold it to. Anyway, I can track the vehicle down. I think then we've reached the end of the comments, Alan.
Cool. Bingo.
That's it. Oh, one more. Here we go. Steve Perry's back with another comment. Second choice for a car would be a Blues Brothers Crown Vic with the loudspeaker on the roof. And Brian Coulson's come back. Oh, hang on. Oh, come on. We've got some more here. We're getting more comments now. Michael Johnson, I remember the feeling of climbing up the car stacks in the scrapyard and the car's rocking, thinking it might fall off with me in it. Yeah. I remember that. I remember climbing up this stack, finding a Princess with a lovely interior, and it rocked under your feet, didn't it?
I bet you were glad you were up there. Anyway, whether it fell over or not, it was all the fun of it, wasn't it? You could do things like that back then. You could climb up a stack of cars, even though it was dangerous. You didn't bloody care. It was fun.
We're getting a lot of comments, so we're getting a sudden surge of comments. So I know we're flagging a bit. We're just going to rattle through as many as we can. So sorry if we don't read everyone's name out. We'll just skip through them. Are you okay, Alan?
Yeah, you see the trains in India with all hundreds of people on the roof.
Yeah, that was like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I don't care about the safety.
When you were in the street at traffic lights, you would always admire your car in shop windows when you were younger. Yeah, that's the magic market. Oh, and Lewis Moxham. Hello, Lewis. How you doing? Come on, Kev. I know you'd want a DeLorean DMC-12. He knows me very well. Only if it's got a flux capacitor with it. Yeah, and a Mr. Fusion on the back because I don't want to put plutonium in it. It's got to be garbage, isn't it? Brilliant. Nice one, Lewis. Hope you're keeping well, mate. Thanks for your comment. Well done, chaps. Thank you. Beano #1 superhero. Hope you've enjoyed it. Brian Coulson, if I had only one car, it'd be a Capri Mark II 2-litre. I love mine. Oh, the Minder one. Like Terry had in Minder, the Mark II. Very nice. Mental Mechanic. My dad bought a brand new black Orion 1.6i Gear 1989. And these give us the reg F863 GDV with dealer fit RS accessories rear spoiler. Very nice. I was amazed by the fuel computer and electric windows. I was 10. Fuel computer. We forgot that, didn't we? On the old Orion there. Yeah.
They even had like the service indicator.
Yeah.
On fitted into some of them.
Wow.
That was sort of like an upcoming thing back then.
That is, yeah, very cutting edge, wasn't it? Mr. Jolly, I have a Peugeot 205 GTI to 1.9 as a daily drive for full 20 years now. Time does fly. Wow.
It certainly does.
205 GTI. I saw actually a couple of weeks ago, they were restoring one of those on Salvage Hunters Classic Cars on TV. That was very nice.
You notice, Mr. Jolly, how the older you get, the quicker time flies.
Very true. And here's someone I think you'll know, Alan. It's Ken.
Hello, Kenner. Hello, sweetheart.
3 hours. You guys are a good team. Brilliant. Thank you. Cheers. Matty England. Thanks for the stream, guys. Been fun. Thank you.
Matty, are you off to bed?
Is that it, Matty? Yeah.
It's not even 10 o'clock yet.
Take care. Steve Perry. Years ago, a girlfriend's dream car was a Peugeot 205. So I sprayed up a model one for a birthday. Very nice. That's inventive. MW, I always go to Grunty Fen Scrapyard. Been there since 1969, out in Grunty Fen. Finn Hogan, thanks Alan and Kevin for the live stream. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for joining, Finn.
We've enjoyed it. Thank you. Well, I think that's all the comments. So thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, now it's time to say goodbye. Till next week.
hope you've enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed reminiscing about the old Mondeos anyway, and all the other cars we've been talking about. So yeah, very interesting. Thanks for all your comments and all the jokes. We've loved it. Been great.
Yeah, so want to do it again? Just name a day and whatever we think about. Just talk about anything. So anyway.
So thank you, and thanks to Alan for inviting me along. That's been really good. I've enjoyed being on this side of the screen for a change. So
yeah,
very good. And we're getting some more comments. I can see them racking up. A lot of people: Michael Johnson, McCoffey, GPSOMG, Brian Coulson. They're all saying thanks very much. GPSOMG is saying the night's young. Let's keep going for another 5 hours. I want to talk about Orions for another 5 hours. Go for it.
Some people do that, though, don't they? They'll just sit there. They won't even say nothing. They'll just sit there watching telly or something.
Yeah.
And they'll be on a live stream and just like monging out. And it's what the hell?
Don't tempt me. Careful what you wish for, is what I'll say. I'm sure some people have had more than enough after 5 minutes, let alone 5 hours. Brian Coulson says thanks. Bye. Oh, here's a good one. I've got to read this one. So Flea said enjoyed this. Thanks, Flea 72. Here's a good one. Steve Perry, can we have Monica next week?
I don't think the live streams are really her sort of thing. Now, if it was at a gym, it'd probably be different. Doing a workout, that's her deal. She likes the gym. So, but I don't think she's too keen on doing live streams. So
you've had to put up with me instead.
Yeah,
through the short straw. Sorry, Steve.
Well, we never know what the future holds. I mean, it's like you're still waiting for Bikini Day of the year, aren't you? And you haven't even got that yet. So we're all waiting for that. You think you might be in for a long wait. Anyway.
That's it then. We're done.
Yeah, we're going to call it a night. So thank you, everybody, for watching and joining in the live stream. It's been fantastic.
Oh, God, hang on.
It's been nearly 3 hours long.
I've just got to read this one. Sorry. Look, we're still on the Monica trip. You could have Monica in the background doing a workout. Oh, God, this is really kicking off now. Bye. Yeah, bye-bye. I think we'll leave it here with this. That sums it up. Bye. So, yeah, we'll look forward to some more live streams, and hopefully we'll get to see Monica at some point.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all in the next live stream. Take care out there. Have a good one.
See ya.
Adios. Now I've got to press the big red button.
Yeah, do that.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.